Dime.
Ya, señor. No trajo ni el paddle esta comadre. But we don't need it. Or maybe the next one might want. Ready?
6 o'clock.
Welcome, everybody. Let's bring this meeting to order. We can stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Salute to the.
Oh, let's do this.
I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, the symbol of liberty.
Okay. We will be skipping over the organization of the board until we approve the agenda and then go back to that. So can I have a motion of approval of agenda?
Moved.
Motion made by Mr. Montes. Can I have a second? Second
Second.
by Mr. Gonzalez.
Could there be discussion about the agenda there?
Sure.
Okay, but you would ask us that, I'm just clarifying, so for after the session.
After he makes
yeah.
the motion,
Okay.
you can.
Okay.
Did
I
you
just-
want
well,
to
yeah,
discuss something?
for the new business, I noticed that the Schumacher, it's already online. So are we approving that? Just so I know it's on there, but what's the purpose? Why is it on there if it's already been, or they jumped the gun and put it online and saying that it's gonna happen?
I'm not understanding. this.
Well, yeah, I sent it to Ms. Marcus too. Yeah, it's been up on, so that's, I'm just asking, is that, there are things that we just.
So
Oh.
there's times where the request to use our facilities comes in, but it comes in before the school board meeting or it happens after. So what we've done is the procedure has been is that we give approval. And then but the board still has to go and officially
Oh, I
approve
wasn't
it.
Sure.
So if it's already happened, this is just the process for the board to officially approve it.
Oh, okay.
Okay?
Go ahead.
Nada más?
Nada más.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Okay, moving on to organization of the board. Can I entertain a motion for president?
I'd like to nominate Richard Marcus as president of the school board. I think with his 25+ years of educational experience, he'd be a really good leader of the board. He knows what questions to ask. He knows human resources. He's been in the trenches.
A second motion.
Okay, we need a roll call vote. Mr.
Hold
Legarreta,
on. Is there any other?
is there anybody,
nominations?
any other nominations? No,
Vice President, Secretary.
no, just,
Just
we're just
president.
working on president right now.
Yeah.
Anybody? Okay, how do you vote, Mr. Legarreta?
Aye. Yes. Aye.
Mr. Gonzalez? Mr. Montes?
Aye.
And myself?
Yes. Oh,
in Richard.
can I buy myself, correct?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
okay.
No, I just, she didn't actually kind of skip it from there. I was like, wait.
I was gonna
I'm
get
not
to you
sure how that-
last. I was gonna get
Okay,
to you
I'm not sure how
last.
that works.
Okay,
So now
vote
the
is unanimous.
president now, yes, motion or nominations and voting carries. So now the president will take control of the rest of the agenda.
Okay, nomination for vice president. Is there a motion?
I'd like to nominate Ray Gonzalez for vice president.
Is there a second?
A second,
Any discussion?
none here.
Motion carries.
Go to roll call.
Sorry.
Roll call.
Roll call.
Yes.
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 Yes,
And no.
Motion carries, right?
Motion carries 3-1.
3-1.
I mean, I'm sorry.
4-1. Okay.
4-1.
Okay. Now for secretary,
I move to have Joaquin Legarreta as secretary of the school board.
I second that motion. Is there any discussion? And oh, sorry, any other nomination?
no,
Roll call, vote?
Yes.
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 yes,
Yes.
Motion carries. Okay, so we go on to number one. We did.
No, actually, we got the committee meetings or the
Oh,
committee,
okay.
the different committee, groups.
Okay,
So we've got, you've got 3 different, committees. We need 2 board members in each committee. And so one's the finance, one's the audit, and one's the Doñana, Community College Advisory Board.
Can you discuss what each of these committees entails?
and once again, just for a question, are these, do we have to nominate a person or can you just say I want to be on that committee?
I think it's just an appointment.
An appointment?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
are we keeping the facilities and maintenance, también? Are we gonna continue with that?
Do we have a committee for that?
Yes,
Oh, the building projects?
Yes.
Yes. Have we done that? We haven't done that as an official, committee, but we usually include, board members, whoever's interested in,
we can do it tonight.
okay?
If anybody has any issues with, I'd like to stay on that facilities and maintenance committee.
Yeah,
I'll second.
okay.
So is there anybody that would like to serve on that finance committee?
I'll volunteer to serve on the finance.
And you said
committee.
we can just
It's
appoint
appointment,
ourselves,
yep.
we don't have to vote on it, we just
Right.
can appoint.
Correct.
Anybody else wants to be on that finance committee?
I'll take that one.
Okay, so, Vice President Gonzalez and Board Member Montes on the Finance Committee. And Mr. Chavez, you did say that we still need somebody for the
For the audit
DACP
committee?
Advisory Board.
Yeah, but, yes, we also have the DACC Advisory Board,
We need 2 members for that also.
correct?
Anybody want to serve on that one? I'll go and volunteer for that one. I can do the DACC Advisory Board.
I'll second that. Anybody else?
Anybody else?
No. I'll do it.
Okay, I'll second them
Yeah.
as well.
Okay,
Okay, so Secretary Legarreta and myself will be on the DACC Advisory Board.
Maybe audit committee.
Well, the audit is Finance Audit Committee is that one committee, right?
so 2 separate ones.
Also, there's 3 different committees there.
Yes.
Hmm. Wow.
I'll volunteer to be on the audit committee.
I've got time doing that. I mean, I'll do the audit.
The Audit committee?
Yeah.
Okay. Just thought finances and audits went together. I wasn't sure about that. Okay,
How long has it been since we've done policy? Committee, I mean,
I don't.
been a while.
It's been a while.
You guys wanna?
We
continue
do
to
the
that one,
policy. So just for clarification, we do subscribe to the policy
Yeah.
service through the NMSBA. And so that usually comes when they have policy changes, usually comes to the board.
Has it been our policy in the past to follow their policies without making any changes of our own?
We've made one change since I've been here. And then it dealt with the marijuana
Okay.
law. But we usually go with whatever is recommended.
Is that what we worked on for athletics, Mike, también?
No, that was
Policy?
procedure.
Procedures.
That was procedure. That was a policy.
My opinion is if legal is coming up with these policies, we follow the policies legal puts out. But I think it is a good idea to at least take some time and review policy together so that the board is aware of what's going on and what is required of us.
Yeah, because there's gonna be times where some of those policies might serve us better if we tweak them a little bit,
Mhm.
and that's within our scope of doing it, so maybe we could just leave that one.
It still comes to it still comes to the board for
Yeah.
approval. So it's part of your packet. What they do is they send out the policy recommendations and we put it as part of the board packet. And then we have, we bring it to the board. And then if there's any discussion or there's any amendments, that's the time that we approve that. And then it's the first reading, and then goes to the first reading, and then it goes to the second reading.
You guys say we just keep the entire board on that?
Yeah.
Just
I
follow
agree.
whatever MSBA. Just-
okay, so we have those, the finance committee, the audit committee and the advisory board completed, correct?
And we're gonna start up the facilities and maintenance, I mean, don't forget.
Okay. Okay, so moving on to the rest of the approval of agenda. 1B, consider approval of minutes from regular board meeting on December 13th, 2023. And I do have a clarifying question. Before we do approve that, is there any, can we have discussion before we move that, or we have to go and do a motion to approve it and then discuss?
No, you can have a discussion, on that.
Okay.
So moved.
I don't have anything on the minutes.
I do have a question on the minutes for number 8. In the minutes, number 8, and it's potential action. Looking at the agenda from December, I didn't see where it stated that executive session would be discussing a pay raise for the superintendent. So I don't know if we need to correct that, because it was rather vague on the executive session. It just said contract, and I just want to be transparent with the community. So that jumped out at me. I wasn't sure how that was discussed when it wasn't on the agenda.
So it was part of the executive session
Yes,
to
but-
discuss the superintendent's contract.
Yes, but
And then they came out of executive session to approve.
it didn't specifically say pay raise, it just said contract.
Mhm.
And I just want to be like, whether, we're gonna extend the contract or increase the salary of the super, I think that's very pertinent to put on an agenda to have that public input. I didn't understand it when I saw it on the agenda. So I'm just assuming that, I don't know if the other members didn't realize you guys would be talking about a pay raise.
It's
during
not,
executive.
well, it's not a pay raise per se. It is just whatever it is, what was decided was anything that is given out of the legislature that is applied to all the employees would also apply to the superintendent. So it wasn't a pay raise in the sense of a dollar amount or anything like that.
But is it mandated to the superintendent or the staff?
It depends on the language of what
Yes.
the
So I
legislature,
would feel more comfortable at least that depending on the language of the legislature, instead of putting there that the board does approve a 3-4% raise for the superintendent.
You want to see the,
Well, yeah, I want
The
to.
actual item on the agenda?
Yeah, and the legislative session doesn't start till the 16th, so I don't even know where that number, the 3% is coming from. I know Pat has asked for 4%, but the 3%, 3 or 4%, I'm not sure why that was even discussed if it wasn't on the agenda. That's the only thing I'm questioning. And how do we go back and fix that?
And I understand his question. So let's say that the legislature passes a 2% raise. Well, you've already said that he's gonna get a 3% raise. Is that,
No,
or
I'm.
let's
just
say that
ending-
they pass a 7% raise, but you only
He's
give him a
asking
3
why
or
it
4%.
wasn't on the agenda.
Yeah,
When we went in to talk about a contract, we go in to talk about a contract. And then other things come up as we go.
yes, I understand that.
So if you
But-
want to go through the minutes of executive, well, actually, there is no minutes
No,
for
that's it,
executive
that's what it
session.
was, but.
Then you
I-
can go into executive session and ask those questions then.
But I think in the future, down the road, we need to be very, very transparent and specify, we're not saying how much we're gonna give them, but we're gonna say, we're gonna discuss the salary for our superintendent or extending the contract. I'm not saying that, but it should be there so people understand what the board is doing and they can have the opportunity for public input. Because if I would have seen pay raise, I would have asked for public input, but before the meeting, Greg Mitchell told me, I thought contract, that you guys were thinking of extending the contract. So we're not doing that. But he also didn't state that, oh, but you know what, Richard, we're thinking of a pay raise, because that would have hurt, I mean, I would have wanted to say something publicly about that.
so you
That's-
want documentation?
Yeah, I just
State-
want to know how we rescind that or how we fix that, because that's not what the agenda states. It has to be about a pay raise, and it's in their minutes.
But the contracting goes in.
Okay, so I make a motion that we rescind that pay raise. Do I have a second?
That's
Why?
not on the agenda. You can't do
The
that.
pay raise wasn't, it wasn't on the agenda either last time.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. I do not see pay raise.
That was
So-
hard.
Because I know when I sign a contract, it doesn't say how much, it doesn't say, oh, we're talking about money. It's a contract for me to work for a year, 2 years, 3 years. That's my understanding.
Right.
I may be wrong, and maybe we need clarification that, so we can put that on the next agenda.
Yes, that
Okay.
was gonna be my next mention is,
'Cause I just
we
think
can table
that's-
it.
Okay,
And if there's anything that needs to be addressed, we can do it on the at the next meeting, if.
Yeah.
Cause I don't know if that's gonna be able to be rescinded or not, so, but we can
And I
table
would-
it for now.
and I would assume that this pay raise or whatever would be contingent on whatever, I mean, evaluation we have on the superintendent based on student data. I mean, things are improving, yeah, but there has to be something, not just because the legislature is saying staff, and we don't know that it says superintendent or administrators. It doesn't, we don't know that yet. You know what I'm saying, right, Mr. Thomas? We don't know that
The,
yet.
the language,
Yeah,
it
it's-
could say it applies to all employees. It could
Yes,
say
yes,
may apply to all employees. It just
Yeah.
depends on the language of what the legislature,
yeah,
passes.
okay, but I just felt uncomfortable with that, and I just wanted to bring that up and how we could remedy that moving forward.
Do you want?
Okay, so
would you
let's,
Prefer, Mr. Marquez, that you get that documentation along with the agenda whenever that comes up for discussion?
Yeah,
But you can't discuss what was said in executive session
Right.
in an open meeting.
No, just whatever legislate, put out
Yeah,
there.
but he doesn't know what was said in executive session that brought upon
But
this.
and my question is, how does the public know? I know that it's a contract. But usually when I see other agenda, it says negotiates on pay raise, it says on there, it doesn't say how much, but usually it says extension of contract or pay increase. It usually says that, but December agenda didn't say.
It usually does, you know?
yeah. So what we can do is, you can table it, for
Okay.
today. We can put it back on for, approval for next month. And in the meantime, what we can do is we can, seek legal counsel.
So we're gonna table the minutes, so we can approve the minutes, then, right? Is that what you're
Right.
saying? Is that what my understanding is?
Right.
Correct.
We'll just table it, Mr. Marquez.
Okay, no, so does there need to be a motion to table the minutes?
I make a motion to table,
Is there a second?
1B.
Oh, sorry,
I second.
Mr. Lindetta, we're gonna take a vote.
Aye.
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 No.
Ms. Beck, no? Okay. 4-1, motion carries to table approval agenda 1B. Okay, number 2, reports, superintendent report.
We've got a lot of information that we've got to go over. The first one is, we've been contacted by RBC. That is the organization that manages our general obligation school bonds. And they are asking, they've reached out to us and wanted to see if the board would be interested in doing a work session to go over that whole process, since we've got new board members, or if you would like to just have them included in next month's board meeting. We do have a March 13th deadline to have everything, the process of selling the bonds. So we need to get this done next month, no later than.
Will this do anything to taxes in the community?
No, this is what we've already, what's already been pushed, or what's already been approved by the voters.
I would prefer some type of work session.
So
Familiar with.
Okay, a work session. Okay, so then we'll need to find a date that works for you guys.
And do we have dates that you have for us that maybe we can talk about now, or?
I don't know. Sheila, have you been in contact with Regina? Did she give us any dates? I think right now they just wanted to know if you wanted it as part of the board agenda for next month, or if you wanted a separate work session.
I would, in my opinion, I would like a separate work session.
Okay.
I have
don't
doubts.
think-
I don't know enough about
Yeah,
the whole
neither do I.
system to.
Okay, so what we could do is we can reach out to them and see if they have dates that are good for them. And then we can present it to you guys, and you guys can let us know.
And
if
that
it
would be
works.
considered a special meeting or just a
It
work
would be,
session?
well, it'd be a special meeting, but it would be a work
Work
session.
session that
Yes,
public could attend and we would let
Yes.
them know that. Okay.
yes. Okay, the second item is information that the board requested last month. The first one is time clock, is the time clock and the time clock process that we follow. And so we do follow an electronic time clock. And I think specific questions that were asked were, I think just questioning the time clock that we use, why, and what do other districts in the surrounding area use. So for that, I have Ms. Sheila Offit, who has that information.
Good evening, board. What I've presented in the packet is a worksheet from the Wage and Hour Division of the Labor Department, which explains all of the information that we're required to document on employees and their hours, especially non-exempt employees, which means they are eligible for overtime. And there's an example within their document of a sample timekeeping format. I did reach out to Deming. I have personal experience. Las Cruces, TRC, Deming and Las Cruces both use Time Clock Plus. And when we compared the programs, NovaTime was much easier to use. It was more user-friendly. The supervisor module was much easier to use. And I did reach out to TRC, and they said they are looking at electronic systems right now, but they currently use paper timesheets. One of the reasons we went to an electric time clock system was for efficiency's sake, and a lot easier on payroll department to track all of the leave and to verify the exact times that we needed to pay employees for overtime.
And looking at board policy and even this statement that I have right here, it says if they're in a fixed schedule, I mean, the employer may keep records showing the exact schedule, and our EAs don't, they have a fixed schedule. And it just brings down morale. It's just not a good thing when one group of people are having to do something different from the others. It just leaves a bad taste in people's mouths, and it's not a good thing. And just, I don't see the need for it. And here it states specifically that we don't have to document like that. I know somebody is saying that it was the law, but it says
Yeah.
the employer may keep a record showing the exact schedule of daily and weekly hours and merely indicate the worker did the following schedule. Employees on the fixed schedule, many employees work on a fixed schedule that they seldom vary from. And based on overtime, how many of our EAs get overtime on a regular basis?
A lot of
Our EAs,
Yes,
our educational assistants.
yes.
And-
They accrue a quarter hour.
No, overtime pay or they accrue time?
They accrue comp time.
Yes,
If they ask to be paid out, it would be paid. If they leave the district, it will be paid.
so they are allowed to ask.
They-
See, they're
they
not aware
could.
of that either.
It's in their benefit to have the comp time to use it. They take it generally on days that we do not have students.
Mhm.
If you would like us to offer that, that's something we can look at. But it is easier since we are on a fixed budget to provide comp time. We did reach out to legal counsel. And they said we were able to offer them the comp time since we are a government entity. But the discrepancy, well, and what we're saying here is, it says that we would have to keep track of the exact hours that are over that schedule.
Yes.
So,
And I
For
won't use the word
efficiency's sake.
animosity, but there seems some animosity when an EA goes and asks for that comp time. It's like pulling teeth from administrators, and I can give you specific examples. So it's not like, yeah, they know they work those extra, or there's even times that they tell them, oh, we're gonna stay till 3:30, but go in and clock out at 3. And I know for a
Oh,
fact,
well-
no, I'm being very honest.
no, I'm
so-
saying I would
Yeah,
would be upset with that.
exactly.
So
let's bring
I
them
would need to
forward.
be made aware of that. Mr. Chavez would need
Uh-huh.
to be made aware of
And
that.
I have to agree with Richard 100%.
It's-
I have seen morale in this district drop when this
Mhm.
system was brought in. We're singling out one classification of employee, and I don't feel that it is right to single out our hourly employees, especially when we have other options that we can use. And I know you said that it was easy to use this system. I was an administrator in this district. It is not an easy system to use. I spent hours every week using this system, cleaning up time clocks that were not correct so that people wouldn't get too much overtime. So I completely agree with Richard. I do not feel that this is an appropriate way to treat our employees at this time.
So what do you suggest?
I suggest that we,
Like the teacher, it says when they're in a fixed schedule, the principal needs to be there. They know what time the EAs come in and don't, if they're late, you address that with them.
So
They leave early.
So,
So one of the
but
things-
that's not I'm asking, what is a suggestion? I'm not saying,
Do the same thing we do with teachers. It's a fixed schedule. Document somewhere that they're in the fixed schedule. And did you know that they have to clock out for lunch and then clock in? also?
I clock in the morning and I clock out for lunch and I
Well,
clock back in at
We
1
can
and I
have
clock
teachers
back out
and
at
everything.
5.
We want to do it. Let's have everybody, even administrators, let's do. it.
So I've
I'm-
also
I'm-
provided,
But that's why I'm asking, what is a solution?
The solution is just to document, keep a record showing the exact schedule of a daily schedule. That's all you need. Comes in at 7, leaves at 3. That's all it states right here, right? Is that where I'm reading or am I reading that incorrectly?
the piece that's not including is
Uh-huh.
making sure we're paying them for any time over that schedule.
Okay,
That's the
understand that.
difference.
I understand.
So this system allows us to track that time and show that we are either giving that as comp time or paying that out. Many of our employees are paid every single pay period for any of their overtime based on the position that
Yes.
they have with the district. And at the end of this section, fact sheet 17A explains the difference between exempt and non-exempt employees. Teachers are professional employees. They are not allowed to accrue comp time or
Yeah,
time and a half
exactly.
because they are professionals. That is the difference. So we're not making the classification between the two. The federal government has said these employees are paid on an hourly rate and they are eligible for comp time, time and a half. That is why we have the system. Now, in the eyes of
And they're
our
still not
auditor,
afforded the comp time. The EAs still aren't afforded that comp time, even if they, it's like I'm telling you, it's very difficult when you go and ask and say, oh, well, there's a specific, and I'm sure you guys are aware about that happened up at Garfield, that they were told they had to be there from such and such time after the work hours. Oh, but he didn't realize that they were gonna receive comp time for that? Give me a break. There is no excuse for that. There's not. So what I'm saying is by having people punch in and punch out, it just creates more. The working conditions are just a little rougher and it just makes people feel like they're being treated unequally. That's,
I don't see how. You
Well-
get a job anywhere else, you're gonna have to clock in and clock out.
well,
Well, and
Anywhere you
I think
go.
the distinction here is, from the Department of Labor, it's the federal government that makes that distinction between exempt and non-exempt employees and the requirements for that. They are hourly employees, whereas a teacher, an administrator, they're not
and the
hourly
sad part
employees.
is, Mr. Travis, and you just stated that they should have known that they get paid. Where, I want to see that document that you sent out at the beginning of the year saying if you work extra time, if you're a Nova time person, you can ask for compensation instead of comp time.
Well, our
I want that
handbook,
document. It
our-
says it in the handbook that.
it's comp time. It
you
is
just
comp
said
time.
It could be.
If they come and request it, we can pay that.
So if
we're
a
gonna-
teacher, if an EA requests to be paid out for that extra time, you have to pay it out.
Yes,
Okay,
I
but we need to
believe
put
so.
that in writing.
I
and we-
can, I will
send
reach
it out.
out to my legal counsel and ask
Yeah,
about that to the
That's not
district
fair.
council.
There's no reason for that.
But it is in the handbook that it is comp time, that they need to use that on a day that does not require them to take a substitute. Because then the district would be paying for that time
And I
twice.
think the principals need to be
And we,
kind of.
we
kept up
can meet
that
with the
because They're
principals
not aware of that.
again to go over
Well, and-
requirements.
And I think we're making general statements, we're saying they don't know that, or, we're making some general
So-
statements there.
For the next board meeting, if I could have all instructional assistants, just the ones that work in classrooms, how many of them have received compensation for the extra time?
They have
or
not.
Comp time.
Only the ones in the grads program,
Oh, okay.
because they consistently work over. And the grads program
Or
pays for the
Transportation, things like,
extra.
I could see, yes.
Transportation pays for that because they are on either a 4 hour or a 5 hour.
Yes.
And we cannot get to the end of the year and have a big bill, and they cannot take their comp time. Who drives the bus?
So I don't understand why we're treating our employees this way if we're not gonna pay them overtime anyway. Why are we making them clock in and out and degrading them this way if we're not gonna pay them for it anyway?
It's a requirement.
So our
clock
kids
in
can
and out.
keep track.
So-
A principal's gonna keep track of Jose and
we
Maria
did.
Pablo
I
as
did
they're
it for-
walking.
I did it for
25
years.
As they're walking in the building.
Oh, I
did it for
You know
years.
that Chris
And
is there
yes.
at 7 o'clock in the
I
morning.
did it for years.
And doesn't leave
I
at
did
till
it for years.
3:30.
I know for a fact.
I
And
did it
you
for
can ask
years.
any teacher, any educational assistant, as a building principal, I was on top of that. We don't have more than 40 staff. It's not like we have 80 staff, maybe the high school.
We
But-
have 106 people in the system
No, I'm saying at a school site.
at a school
That-
site.
That's not
But
rough.
when that goes on to Sonia on paper timesheets, that this person worked this much and a note on how many hours they worked above their timesheet, this allows the leave to be entered, documented, uploaded from Nova Time into iVisions that tracks all of our sick leave, annual leave, professional development leave, any leave for our ed fellows. They get extra professional development time to go to classes. All of that is tracked and documented here. We run reports for this for those programs. This allows all of the information to be in one system and not a bunch of timesheets in a notebook.
And then for educational assistants, you go ask for comp time. Oh, you can't because you can't leave during the regular workday. Because we have our kids, we need you for lunch duty. We need you to be in the classroom working with kids. So when do they use that comp time? And that's where that comes from. Before we had Nova time, it was just understood, and we have a sign in, sign out book. And that was very easy to keep track of. If I kept you, for example, even a meeting, principal should say, all EAs, it's 3 o'clock, you may leave. Teachers, you're here with me, but those that decide to stay, that's a little different. Or if I had a mandate that, you know what's very important, we need to make a decision. Before you leave, go sign out and you stay till 3:30, I owe you 30 minutes. Go sign out. But that's not what's happening.
Well, this system will do that if the principals are utilizing it correctly.
But they're telling us to sign
And
out
I will,
before.
we will address
So,
that with principals.
one of the things that we
When the
could,
Principal tells you, directs you, oh, it's 3 o'clock signing out, even though you're staying till 3:15, how
yeah,
fair is
that's
that?
not fair.
It's not.
And if that's happening, that's inappropriate. So one of the things that I could suggest that we can look at is make sure that in our staff handbook,
Mhm.
that the information that you're asking about, that it is clear in there for our employees to understand.
And our board policy does not state that they have to clock in.
No.
The non-certified and the certified stay the same thing. They just have to report on time. Nothing about going to punch in, clock in for lunch, clock out, clock in at the end of the day. the beginning of the day, clock out at the end of the day. It doesn't say anything like that in our board policy for non-exempt
Okay,
employees.
well, we'll end
Yes,
this
I
with
understand.
one more point that I have a school business official's
Yes.
license and I go to training. And these are the concerns that are brought up
yes,
all the time consistently. It is recommended that we use
Okay.
an electronic timekeeping system.
But it is not
For-
required, right?
It is required to keep record
A
of
system,
this
but not an
information.
electronic system,
Yeah.
right?
No, not electronically.
Yeah.
It is required that we keep this information.
Okay.
And I mean, this is like using an adding machine versus an Excel sheet. I mean, if you want to go back to the adding machines, we can throw our computers away. But what we are doing is trying to make it more efficient on everyone. We're all using the same system. It's so, but I report to the auditors
Yes.
on all of these things. It's very hard to make a step forward for efficiency's sake and accuracy and retention of records, and then to say, by the way, we don't want to do it anymore.
So we were getting dinged with
So-
audits because we weren't using.
We
Nova
hadn't
electronic.
been, when we came in, we requested timesheets and there were no timesheets.
So one of the things that with the auditors, one of the things that they looked at previously when we were doing paper
Mhm.
timesheets is one of the problems they had is that every timesheet said 7:30 to 3. Okay, and what they were saying is nobody works like those exact hours. You have to have an accounting for the exact hours that they're there,
Mhm.
the exact minutes and that sort of thing. But when we had timesheets that had the same work hours for everybody, not a minute over, not a minute, sooner, whatever. That they do question that
Yeah.
because they say, not everybody works like that.
The
There are situations that, and so that was one of the things that was brought up during one of our audits.
Yes,
And
they
I'm sure
said
they
it's
see the same thing with
fabricated
Nova time
records.
when they see all EAs, all of them checking at 3:30
But
or
we
3.
have
we
their
have to address
punch. Yes, I understand that you're saying if a principal tells them to punch out and keeps them, that's not
But we
acceptable.
could just take a look at that and see how many EAs are actually, like you were saying, they're all punching out at 3. Isn't that doesn't that raise a red flag? Have you ever thought about that?
No, they're all different times.
No, I know, either
Well,
3 or 3:30.
258,
250.
259,
Oh,
4,
yeah,
304,
because you have to check up by 3,
because-
but not
and
3:30,
It also has,
15.
no, many do.
And
Really?
one of my
Yes.
problems is we're saying we're using Nova time, but those punches aren't accurate because as an administrator, I was instructed to go in and change timestamps so that it would meet certain requirements. And I have heard flat out from EAs that their administrator is taking 30 minutes off their time clock because they have been instructed to make sure that they're not giving their people overtime. This is not a fair system to our hourly employees. It's not a fair
So,
system.
so the issue that you just brought up, regardless of whether it's time and electronic or a paper, is still going to be, the issue is still going to be the same. And so it's more important that we address the issue and not the system of recording. If that is happening, that needs to be reported. If you have information about that, that should be reported to me. And so that I can address that. But I have not heard, not one person has brought any of that to my attention.
So for the winter program, when they were not given their whole 5 hours and 2.5 hours, that was not reported to you? When
No.
they were kept, no, that's, I need a. that
Okay,
is- So how did the 2.5 hours come up then instead of the 5?
I was told that they worked the times of the program.
From 3, they weren't allowed to leave, so even if they. were
And
in the
I did
program,
not know,
understand
I
that.
was not there.
But then once
I-
again, how fair is that?
Okay, well, this
But-
is an administration.
Yeah, no, I understand, but.
It's, if we have issues that are, as you say,
Mhm.
those are issues that need to be addressed. And that is addressed, again, bring that to the superintendent and then I will have those conversations. And if the employee feels comfortable enough, I will gladly visit with anybody. We're not here to take advantage of anybody. And,
That's what they're
and
feeling, and I understand that, and that's, I mean, but based on what you gave us, there's really no need for that, for our
I-
non-exempt employees to be using Nova time. But if they are gonna use Nova time, then we need to make sure that they're aware that they can be compensated for any minute after 3 o'clock, and an administrator cannot tell them to clock out at 3 o'clock. If they're in the building, you do not clock out until you're walking out that building. Whether it's 4:30 3:30, you are not, nobody can direct you, but they're worried, so they do what they're directed to do.
So those are procedural type systems that we can look at and we
Okay.
can improve upon. Absolutely.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Is there a way we can put this agenda item for an item of action on our next board meeting?
We can put it out for further discussion if that's what you guys are asking for. No problem.
Yeah.
'Cause there's a lot of questions that most likely can't be answered tonight, Mr. Marcus. So that's probably something to discuss with Mr. Chavez.
And I'd like to put it as an item that can have action on it as well.
I would like to seek legal counsel on that first. And I may even recommend that, if we're going to be nitpicky about some of these things that have been happening, that we have our legal counsel present for our school board meetings.
I make a motion to table this
It's
discussion
just a
for,
report.
It's
This
just
is
a
a
report.
Just
We're
a
just
report, so there's
questioning.
no-
but he's asking, you wanna, you know what, you can put it on there for discussion for the business in the future.
Yes.
You can
Okay.
do that.
Moving along, we have an update on the remodel for the building. We've been calling, a lot of times we call it the old band and culinary arts room. And so we have come up with a title for that, and that's the Student Services Training Center. That'll be next door. The building is set to be completed, and we should have occupancy by the end of the month. And so our hope is that the next school board meeting beginning in February will actually be held in the new board room and training room.
Great, because my wife can't call me a liar. I told her end of the month.
All righty. The next piece is the foster grandparent program, and we do have Miss Olivia Paez, who is here, who understands the program, who's been involved with the program at different levels, and so Olivia will present information and stand for questions.
So I can speak a little bit to the foster grandparent program. So I understand that there had been some kind of a foster grandparent program here in Hatch. And I know that our great ladies over here.
In
have
fact,
been
I had a
involved.
foster
Yes.
grandparent.
Oh, yes, there. Okay, thank you.
Thank
My history as a social worker comes into play when we talk about the foster grandparents. I was employed there at one point before I started working with the public schools. So I did foster grandparents, retired senior volunteers, and senior companions for 3 years. And those programs are AmeriCorps programs. So with AmeriCorps, it's a program that's usually funded by a 501c3. And if I understand, this was from El Concilio, right? That was the 501c3. So whenever the foster grandparent program ended with Concilio, it was very concerning to us because of course we want our grandmas in the schools with our kids. And Carla Yao and I reached out to Concilio to see, and I just did that again today, to see if I could get some kind of a response as to what happened, as to why the foster grandparents were not working with Hatch anymore. I couldn't get any information. What I'm thinking probably happened is for some reason they lost their grant maybe. And with the foster grandparent program, what they do is you have to be low income to qualify. And then it's a stipend. So it's not really a pay. So it's $2.45 an hour. Is that what it still is? Wow. And that was a long time ago I did it. I'd say maybe about 25 years ago, and it hasn't changed. Yes. And so it's 20 hours a week through them. So when that happened, I know that it was upsetting because we wanted to continue with that, but we don't have a grant. And then we did talk to the foster grandparents, to them about maybe doing some kind of a school-based foster grandparent program. But when that came up with the other foster grandparent program, it doesn't affect their income. It doesn't affect their Social Security. And so that's the beauty of that program. They never have to report it to anyone. And so it doesn't affect their medical, and it doesn't affect their Social Security. It doesn't affect food stamps or anything like that. And if there were to be a program done through the schools, they would have to get their minimum wage, which would be $15 an hour, which at some point could affect their income So that's kind of where we stayed, and I don't know whether the grandmas are interested in doing that, or if Mr. Chavez is interested in doing that kind of program.
So one of the things that we talked about, because the foster grandparent program, the grant was not part of the
No.
schools. Okay, so it's totally separate. It's an outside entity. We welcome the grandmas that come in and work with our kids. I think it's a great partnership. We've talked about the possibility of bringing them on board on staff and like a part-time type situation. But it's not that simple because of what Olivia just mentioned. We're bound by the minimum wage law and which then could affect their benefits that they receive. And so, but we've looked at like maybe community schools and having them part of our community schools program and initiative. But again, then you still fall into the pay. And so we haven't been able to figure out a way to bring them on board and pay them as they were paid through the foster grandparent grant that they initially were. So we're not opposed to having them in our schools. I think the big barrier right now is how do we pay them, and how do we meet, how do we get around the requirements of the minimum wage and not impacting the benefits that they currently receive.
Is there other programs out there that would be interested in funding this grant? Or-
So look, usually senior programs like the senior citizen centers are usually the people who run those programs. When I did it, I worked for the senior center in Deming. And so the foster grandparent, senior volunteer, senior companion programs usually go through senior centers. When I looked up El Concilio, it wasn't specifically like a senior center. It seemed like it was more community-based. So I don't know if there's a senior center in Hatch that's interested in doing a grant, because I would be more than willing to help them to write the grant, to, try and access a grant. Do you guys have any ideas of anybody
There's
in
a
Hatch?
senior center in Placitas.
Okay, and who
I
runs
don't
it?
know who the
Doña Ana
director is.
County.
Doña Ana County. Okay,
Oh, is there?
yeah, I did not know.
Oh,
Okay, okay, yeah, so I mean, that's what I was thinking. Maybe it would be a good avenue to try and approach them
Yes,
to
of
see if
course.
they're interested in doing a,
Definitely, we need our grandmas back.
And
Yeah.
if you can get an answer from anybody,
okay,
that'd be interesting to know.
okay, awesome. Any other concerns or questions?
I'd like to see him come back in the
Yes.
Me
buildings.
too. I'm glad to clarify that. Yeah, because there might have been some misinformation out there as to what was, happening with that, but it's good to clarify that it's not that we, as a district, we're not interested in our grandmas. We support them, and they're the best volunteers. I mean, they're out there with us all the time at the clothing bank. It's just that there's those little issues that need to be worked on so that we can get back to where we were before. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the list under instruction is student absenteeism. And this is a request that that I believe it was Kuka that requested this information about the kids, the number of kids that left before the Christmas break and how many have returned. And so I've taken information from the principals. And so this is the result. We do have, we have some schools have more kids leaving early and depending on how you look at it, yes, it's concerning when you look at some of the numbers. When you look at it from percentage perspective, it's anywhere from 5 to 15% más o menos and of our population. So each one is a little bit different. Our principals are monitoring that closely. We do have kids that have withdrawn. They withdrew from school and then they're monitoring of that, how many kids have returned. And so the last column is as of 1/9, which was yesterday, the number of kids that have not returned yet.
What's our total enrollment right now?
Our exact total enrollment, I believe it's 1185.
Has it dropped from last year?
We've been holding steady.
Holding steady?
Yep.
If these numbers, if we were to lose this many 70-some students, financially, what's the FTE per kid right now?
FTE per kid is about 5,000, about 5,600. Más o menos, yeah. So yeah, it would be significant if we lost them. So as you guys know, we get funded on the 80th and 120th day data. So we're monitoring that as well as we move forward.
And when you talk about kids that are withdrawn, did they attend school at first or?
Yes, they were in our school system and they withdrew to either move to another city, move somewhere else.
So these don't include the students that were dropped. We haven't dropped any students
Yeah,
after the 10
has-
days, right?
We have some kids that get dropped, yes,
Also,
for 10
some of them
days.
may be
Yeah,
Due to the 10 days,
right.
they're only on day 3 from returning.
but if they left
If they left before,
or.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that's one of the things that we struggle with because we know that the kids are coming back, but sometimes they're out for 10 days. So then the struggle is, do we drop them or do we keep them on our rolls? But what's happening is if we keep them on our rolls, then it impacts our absentee rate. And so, so what our principals have been doing is making sure that that parents understand that if they're gone for 10 consecutive days, that they will be dropped.
when did we start seeing the large exodus back home before Christmas? A week before, 2 weeks before?
It varies.
It varies.
You know, some, mostly the week before.
I know some of the neighbors in my neighborhood were a week before.
And you know, some of them leave for deep in Mexico, Guanajuato and gosh, even areas around Mexico City. And so it's a long drive. We were told that kids usually stay out until El Dia de los Reyes. So we adjusted our calendar this last year to make sure that we don't return before then. But as you can see, we still have kids that are still out.
Now, if we went back and looked, would there be a big difference, you think, from last year to this year?
No, I think this is
It would be
pretty
the same. It's
consistent.
just pretty
Yeah.
consistent. So it's the same families.
I don't think you're gonna change their mindset about being in school when their family's so far away.
Yeah.
I really don't.
What our principals are doing is they're meeting with parents and they're informing them the impact of being gone for so long. But you're right, you know, it's family, family means everything to our parents. And so it's one of those balancing acts. So for example, if I can talk about Miss Marcus and the situation that she had with one of her parents, the parent did say, I'm leaving for Mexico, I won't be back. So one of the things that we had talked about was, okay, you know, the impact it's going to have on your kid academically. And so, of course, they know that it does, that it impacts them. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to work with parents then to say, okay, when you return, are you willing to have your kid do a little extra work to get caught up academically? So for example, today we met with a parent. And one of the solutions that we had was to provide the parent and the child a Chromebook that they could take home and use some of our software. And so we'll be providing a Chromebook and a hotspot for that child. And they've committed to make sure that the kid is using the program. And so it's not the same as direct instruction, but it does at least keep the kid engaged and making up some ground.
has there been any thought about if they were gonna leave early, sending them with the Chromebook? I know we had some kids in Mexico during the pandemic that were on Zoom in Mexico. They had internet access. I don't know if that would be a possibility or is that just encouraging them to leave earlier and stay? You know what I mean? I don't
It's a
know that.
balancing act.
Yeah.
It's like I said, you know, a good example is changing the calendar to not come back until after Dia de los Reyes.
Mhm.
And, you know, with the idea that, okay, well, if we accommodate this, maybe they'll come back, you know, when they're supposed to. And, you know, sometimes it doesn't matter. You know, they're still going to leave. You know, the draw to go visit family is just, it's huge.
then it's a burden to ask the teacher to kind of get work ready to send with them. And I mean, some
Right.
teachers will do that, but it's not fair to, and once
Right.
again, we encouraging parents, oh, they're gonna give us the work and we can
Right.
work on it and then leave early and come back. So it's
It's a balancing
situation.
act that we
Yeah,
just
that-
got to work through. Yeah. Okay. Any questions on that? Any other questions? Okay, the next one is the house system. And so request was for the house system. I think the first question was how much have we spent financially on the house system over the last 3 years and the impact. And so for the first part of it, the financial piece, we got Ms. Sheila Offit, who will present that information. And then followed by Dr. Tony Hall, who will talk about the impact of what we're seeing from that.
I'm sorry that your packet was not in color. I didn't realize that. So we put it up here so you can see it in color. The orange line on each of the first 3 years at the bottom is the substitute cost. We only had two days out, and many of the employees we sent were not teachers, so they did not require substitutes. The blue at the bottom is your professional development, which included the registration and travel. And as you can see in FY24, we have not sent anyone. We do have a list of employees requesting to go visit, but we have not spent any on professional development. If you scroll down just a little bit, Andrew, right there is our approximate annual cost of implementation. So this is the software that we have purchased for all of the buildings to be able to assign points to the students and to the house system based on which house. I believe that the different houses can get points, even if it's not for students, but for the house on competitions. Yes. And our bus drivers can enter for students on the bus. I mean, anybody can enter, cafeteria staff, secretaries. We actually have a lot of secretaries that do enter points. Gray would be our, okay, that's the software. Sorry, I can't see. Yellow is supplies and materials. That's the cost of the t-shirts. Of course, we had a large cost the first year that we implemented district-wide buying the t-shirts. And then we purchased this year not Rio Grande, sorry, Hatch Elementary and Garfield Elementary. All of their students except for kindergarten and pre-K spun the wheel last semester. And then we have purchased shirts for the kinder that will be spinning soon. So again, we would consistently have kindergarten coming in to need t-shirts and new employees, new students as they move into the district. So the supplies and materials costs would go down more like the FY23 because it would be kind of a maintaining, maintenance, new employees, new students. New Mexico Coalition of Educational Leaders last summer actually brought Ron Clark and one of his teachers to the NMCL conference. And they actually paid $28,000 for him to come because they thought the message was that important for New Mexico educators. And so I did want to point that out. We did compare this to Capturing Kids' Hearts. That was a program that we were looking at back in 2019. And the difference between Ron Clark financially is that the cost of sending someone to Atlanta is to be inspired. It's registration to see something new, to be, have an experience, to be able to just see that things are, could be different somewhere else. And it just gives them kind of a vision. Capturing Kids' Hearts, every student, every employee needs to be trained. So the initial training for our district would be about $90,000 if we were to train every employee. Ron Clark is not that way. It's a system that we develop ourselves. So the trip is just to see it in action. We have also sent teachers just to Las Cruces to MVLA. We've had other schools come here to see our system, to come attend different house events so that they can go home inspired. So the notes every year, there's on Capturing Kids' Hearts, $4,000 per school per year. The cost of our software, I believe, was about $7,500 total. If you want to scroll back up to the software, well, maybe I have it right here. FY24 software, $7,200. So that is our annual cost of software. So that's just a comparable program. We've seen it work. We've seen good success from it, but it is expensive to maintain, and any new employee coming in would have to be trained. There's a high expense per year. I added a couple links at the bottom just for informational purposes.
Now that you break it down that way, it is costly.
Yeah, well, yeah, we would have been 63,000 more in the hole if we had gone with capturing kids' arts to date.
Appreciate the professional development. It's on me, so.
So I want to also point out that it wasn't just teachers that got to go see the Ron Clark Academy. It was counselors, it was secretaries. You know, in order to change and impact school culture, you know, it's important for people to go out and see something that's high functioning so that they can come back. Number one, like Sheila said, to be inspired. But number two is to be able to bring back ideas so that they can be implemented.
Pretty much an introduction to succeed.
Yeah. Well, and let me just add also that we are required by especially coming out of COVID, we were required to do some type of SEL, social emotional learning. And so we know the impact of a positive school culture and what it has on the environment of the school, not just in behavior, but also academically. And that's what Dr. Hall is here to present.
Good evening, board. So on the next page in your packet, you'll see since implementation of the house system. And this comes from Panorama, which is our platform that we use for, well, a lot of things. It's for academics, but it's also for behavior. It pulls its data from PowerSchool. So all this data is coming from PowerSchool, but it puts it in a framework, really a platform that teachers can easily see which kids need the most help. Interventions now are going into Panorama. So it's a multifaceted program. So I just pulled some data from Panorama because of the way it does track this data.
I have a
And-
question. Excuse
yeah.
me, the academics, so Rio Grande right now, 23, 24. So that's saying that 76% of our kids are proficient in reading the math, or what is?
No,
that?
no, no,
What is that?
Not proficient.
So percentage of excelling and on track, meaning in their
They're
grades.
excelling.
So,
So what does excelling mean? I'm just to clarify. that.
okay. I'd have to look up that parameter, but what it means is basically, usually it means a or a B or a C.
So this is based on grades, not on
Yeah, it's
percent.
based on grades. This is grades.
Oh.
This is from
grades.
teachers' grade books, PowerSchool. And so it shows starting from 21, 22, in the grade book, the percentage of students that are at the highest level and at the on track. So it's average and up. So 53%, 67%, 76%. So in 21, 22, only 53%, only 20%, and then only 10%.
So how does this reflect on before test scores that are coming back?
Yep, we're gonna,
That seems to be a successful
Mhm.
program, but it's not the bottom line. Our test scores are
Right.
still.
so we're gonna show
I'd be
some.
Curious to know in 2020, which teachers, because, and I hate to say that, but teachers grade very differently. If you're doing this on grades.
This is grades right
Grades,
now.
yes, but that's what I'm saying. So in 2020, 21, 22, are they the same teachers as 2023?
I'd have to get you that data. Yeah.
Because that,
Um,
that would skew something if they're different teachers or
Mhm.
different teaching at different grade level, because teachers. Grade.
So keep
Yeah.
in mind that this
Yeah.
is whole school data.
Yes.
Okay, so it's all teachers.
And it really is like these three parameters, there's three parameters in Panorama for the early warning system of kids that are not on track. And it's academics, it's behavior and attendance. And there is data in this packet a little bit later, we'll get to that. But we see that it's been increasing every year. And I want to just make a note about the 23 to 24 year to date. So if you look at the middle school, it shows 46%, 22, 23, and 31 now, but that's halfway through the year. So if you think about it, we are on track to beat that number for the end of the year. So they're already almost to where they were at the end of last year. Okay. And yes, that is teacher grades, but we have been doing a lot of training with teachers on how to grade more for what students know rather than just doing the work. Like, you just get a participation grade and everybody gets 100 kind of deal. So I'm really proud of teachers really looking at how they grade and grading more intentionally. Okay, so that's that data. Then the behavior data. So a lot of the research, when you dive into the research on the house system, comes from helping this part, the sense of belonging and behavior. So if you look at this is percentage of students excelling and on track in Panorama. Again, no referrals. These kids have no referrals at all to the office. So the percentage of kids, 40%. And then it was 100%. Well, that's pretty darn good. And so 98%, even though that's a little bit of a decrease, but again, year to date, and 65% in the middle school to 96%, 97%, and in the high school, 69% to 98%. So it's a small percentage of students that are the ones getting their referrals. And so
And this
that
is what
is
you
another,
pulled from.
this is from Power
Power
School. Yeah.
So it's
Well,
up to each administrator to put that data.
yes, and they are putting it in.
They are.
Yes.
Okay.
So
they are.
I did have a question like that.
Yep.
Concerning it, it does not appear that there are some administrators putting in discipline referrals on a consistent basis, because some of these are not adding up. Based on what I know is going on in the school, so I'm a little concerned
Okay,
about
well-
that with some of the
Yeah.
administrators not putting in the data.
And we'll get, yeah, so let me just finish this and then we'll get to the questions on the discipline and our principals are here as well. Also in Panorama, there are surveys and students take surveys regularly. The last survey was in December, but it was done by PED and we haven't gotten those results yet. So we didn't want to over survey kids. So I didn't do one in December. But if you take a look here, the 3 parameters that Panorama measures, and this is a nationally known program. It's not like it's just one district so that uses it. So the 3 things they focus on are rigorous expectations, school climate, and sense of belonging. And I want us to spotlight RGE and take a look at this. So if you look percent favorable, it means again that the kids said it's been good or very good. So if they say anything below like, oh, it's not so good, then it's not favorable. And so 80% of the kids said the rigorous expectations are favorable. That kind of stayed the same. But look at school climate, 75% favorable responses from students. And that went up 8 points. And their RGE is in the 60th to 79th percentile in the nation, comparing in the nation as far as if you see a bell curve where they're at, they are above the national average for grades 3 through 5 for kids that similarly took that survey. And then sense of belonging, which is where the house system really focuses on, 75%, they're in the top percentile, the 80th to 99th percentile, and they've gone up. And our other schools have gone up as well. And so I just wanted to spotlight RGE and as for their efforts with the house program.
So
But that's
Tony,
just some of the data.
what's going wrong then? Because like Chris said, how come this isn't transferring over to our test scores? Because our test scores are still, they're in the bottom there. What's going wrong? What's not connecting between?
But it is transferring in some areas. So some of the areas that we've looked at. And I think that it's really hard to say a causality between like the house system and this test, you know what I mean? So it's a variety of things, like you said, it's teachers and using instructional strategies, it's sense of belonging, but it's also implementation. It's implementation and how often and once you get started on this, and I'm just going to tell a personal anecdote from this, because as principal of MVLA, it didn't start, you don't start right away and everything's like, everyone's into it and excited and we're all a family and we're all doing it. It doesn't work that way. So if you looked at like the academic, went back when they did school grades, we started, and it was an F for MVLA. Each year it chips away as long as we stay the course and we implement and we make time for these house activities for kids to get together in different groups, grade level, houses, I mean, variety of groups, sports, clubs, things like that. Right now, they went, last year they were a spotlight school. This year they're a school of excellence. Now, am I saying it's all because of the house system? No, but I'm saying that was the basis for what occurred. And that is what's occurring here. It just takes time. And that's where I think we're seeing some of,
Explain that to me in school climate.
Yeah.
Sense of belonging and rigorous
Favorable.
expectations.
yeah.
So that rigorous expectations that from themselves or from the teachers or.
From the teachers. So the questions, and I
Yeah,
can break it down with the questions.
Yeah.
I don't have that in front of me right now, but I can break it down and get you the questions. But it is, my teacher encourages me to continue working even though I want to give up. My teacher gives me work that is challenging to me, things like that. So it all is based on what the teacher is. Whether or not my teacher believes I can do the work. My teacher helps me when I need help, things like that.
Do you feel that if you would have trained more of our staff, that this would have caught on a little bit better?
Do I want everyone to go see RCA? Yeah. This is the thing, is that, and that's a great point. Yes, it would be great. And it's just not feasible. It's just not feasible. So some of the advantages that we've taken is going to MVLA. Cloudcroft invited us to come. I mean, other schools we're connecting to in New Mexico to go there and see what it looks like. Because it's costly, but do I want everyone to see it? Yeah, we have to have those energizers at the buildings who go, bring it back and then teach it. And I think that that's where the work has to
And
get
once
done.
again, we go back to that student academic performance,
Mhm.
RGE. Yeah, they're a spotlight school, but when you look at their data,
Mhm.
they're out of 5 schools, they're at the bottom. So I'm not sure how this translates to academics or how, if they really feel that rigorous expectation, it's not transferring to learning. For some reason, if they're doing this.
Well,
why is
something's
it-
not translating,
Yeah,
not just the
something-
house system. I mean,
No,
there's a
right.
whole-
No,
there's so many.
And this may be not just the house system, because we do, at Rio Grande, at the elementaries, you do have social workers, right? So how does that play into some of these things that are
Yeah.
happening here?
No, all of those
Yeah.
teachers and community schools
But
now that
just-
we have,
yeah,
all of those
exactly.
supports are going to help us increase.
So,
know.
Richard, just
Yeah.
for clarification, one of the things that we've been working on, and you guys know, we have to have the dash plan.
Mhm.
And part of that dash plan process is root cause analysis. And so our principals have been meeting with their leadership team to ask those same kind of questions. Why are we not moving? But what we do know is, we know from the research that we've got to have a positive school environment, right? I mean, if we don't have that, then the rest of it just becomes very, very challenging. So we know that that's a beginning and that's the foundation from which we build off of for the academic piece. Now, our instructional system, those are things that we have to continue to have those conversations. And so are we misaligned? I don't know if we're misaligned.
And I am gonna
know?
state that, and not to put anybody down, but I think a lot of time is being spent here instead on the academics and what kids need to know and be able to do.
Well-
They're spending, no, and you can look on the website, Rio Grande does wonderful things with that house system. They outshine every other school,
Absolutely.
but maybe the effort there needs to be a balance, maybe.
Yeah.
With academics and this emotional, social kind of thing.
Sure.
And that's all I'm saying, like, that looks great, but it's.
Well, and
something's
one of the
happening
things that
when
you asked why.
Yeah,
And like I said, that's why we're doing root cause analysis. But one of the things that we do recognize, and I think that's what you're alluding to, is that our instructional practice has to change, right?
exactly, so.
And so that,
Program like this house system dealing with construction,
so,
where's the?
well,
the other-
and that is what Ms. Collins has been working on. And so one of the things that,
Because this is a district initiative, the house system, I'm asking
yeah.
as a district.
well, you were asking about Rio
Yeah,
Grande.
she's doing it,
Yeah.
but it's a district.
As a
initiative.
district,
So
yes.
what's the district initiative for instruction? Then if we have the house system, what are we doing academically
Yeah.
at the district level? What's the push? Or what's the initiative?
Well, it's
Where is
many
it?
different things.
Oh.
So that's what's captured with the house, not the house plan, but the dash plan. And so every
Well,
principal
what
has a
amount you
dash
spent
plan.
On that, on the instruction piece, you can show us how much money you spent on the house system, how much has been spent on an academic initiative.
I mean, we'd
What are
have
we
to,
focusing on in our district? What's our instructional initiative for our district? This is awesome,
Mhm.
but what are you doing to help Rio Grande academically?
oh,
That's
there's,
all I'm
there- we,
Okay.
yeah, and we,
Okay.
we can get numbers on professional development because we've done a lot with our new curriculum that we adopted and having teachers even doing some refresher trainings with iStation, things like that.
And,
So-
and moving forward,
Yeah.
Tony, I
Yeah.
know that the social emotional piece is really important. What's your plan moving forward? How are you? If we're continuing to see the types of gaps we're seeing
Mhm.
between instruction and social emotional, what's your plan moving forward? Are we gonna continue to spend money on a house system if we're not getting results? Because I know it's at this point $95,000. I'm just concerned. I'd like to see some movement in academics as
Mhm.
well. So like, what's your plan moving forward there?
With the house system?
With the house system and academics, how are
I
you
mean,
gonna
that's
bring them
something,
together?
that's not something that I'm going to decide. That's something we are going to
Do we
decide
have
as,
a director
as
of
our
instruction in
principals.
this District, I'm not sure. Is there a director of instruction?
Well, we
I'm
have.
not-
That's me.
Yeah.
Oh,
And that's me.
oh,
I mean-
oh, sorry. No, I just don't. So
Yeah.
if you don't know what exactly we're.
I do know. I do
Oh,
know.
oh.
And, but you asked about the house system.
No,
And I'm not gonna
other
make,
piece for
okay,
next
let
year.
me address it. I'm not gonna make a decision about the house system without asking my principals, without asking parents. They have to ask their parents, the community, what they want to do.
Okay.
And when I keep hearing that there's money spent on the house system costs, yes, to go, but it doesn't cost anything to do. The house system is about me wearing my house shirt and knowing that Mr. Chavez is in Rivera and we're connecting and like Sheila going to the store and a kid saying, I'm in the greenhouse. And I know Randy's in the greenhouse and she's got her green on today because it's Wednesday. It's not about that. We have people that are willing to be those leaders in the buildings.
I'm still in.
That's right. You're out too.
Yeah.
You got the right day. And I still know what houses everybody is. But the thing is this, is that when you think about the house system, it has to be a community, now with community schools too, decision. I can't decide. It's gonna look different at every one of our schools. Yes, we use the same app. We track points because of positive behavior supports. But what they give points for at the middle school is different what they give points for at RGE. Because they're littles. And a lot of what we're thinking about in the house system is the littlest of littles, the Garfield and Hatch Elementary, they're just learning about what it means to come to school and learn. And then at 3 to 5, they're competitive. I go over there, they always want to play a game or do something like that. Then in 6 to 8, they want to be more community service oriented. They like to do things for the community and be leaders and they're learning leadership. Then they get to the high school and they want to mentor those littles. So the house system has so much leadership and things like that, that doesn't cost anything. It's just, know what it costs? Time. Costs time. We have to give that time. And we talk about building relationships. Kids aren't going to want to learn math if they don't have a relationship with that teacher or with the other kids in their class. They're not going to. And so when it comes to instruction, what do? Quad D. And I know that, like we talk about Quad D, high expectations, making sure everyone's on grade level, making sure fidelity of the curriculum. So like going in classrooms and making sure that they are using the curriculum, I make sure that they have what they need every single day. And if they don't have it, they tell me, they tell their principal, they tell me, and we get it to them. If they need training, just like we just had iStation, I get it for them. So whatever they need, but it's got to be rigorous. It's got to be on grade level, and we use the New Mexico instructional scope. That's our plan.
And just one more comment. It's nice to see the house system showing all this improvements, but
Mhm.
after 4 years where academics are still way down, something needs to change. So we really need to focus.
I agree,
Yeah.
I mean, there's always room for improvement, and,
If I had a choice, I would rather have high academics and low on this scale of the house
Well.
system.
Right, but you
My
can't have
opinion.
one without the other. You can't.
Now we just have one without the other for the last 4 years,
Well, we're getting there. And we haven't had the house system for 4 years.
3 years.
This is only our
Third?
third year.
Third year.
3 years.
our third year, yes,
Because we had COVID.
right.
First year was COVID. So, yeah, it was at the end of the 2021. So,
Okay.
yeah. And another thing I just want to add is that it is also about high expectations for kids. And
I
so
would like
making
to
sure that
ask
everyone
you
has-
guys as leadership to start thinking about those next steps. How do you transition from just working on this house system to making this transition into how is it going to positively impact our students' academics? Because that's
So,
my concern.
Again, I'm going to go
Okay.
back to
Doesn't-
every building has a dash plan.
Yeah,
And
everybody.
every building, you know, develops what their needs based on root cause analysis and during their PLC. And so they visit this. Every school has a PLC process every week. And so that is where they're tweaking, they're looking at what is the instructional pieces? What is the impact? You know, is it a curriculum piece? I mean, it could be curriculum, it could be instruction, it could be just a need for professional development, but every school is different. Every school has different needs. And especially since we got different grade level configurations, you know, to say we're going to do a blanket, you know, say this is what we're going to do. Well, that's kind of, every school has a little bit different need. And so, but we are aligned to the standards. We have to be aligned to the standards. That is what Dr. Hall is alluding to when she says the instructional scope. And you know, PED has done a lot of work in developing that instructional scope. So when we talk about vertical alignment, when we talk about, okay, so that's vertical alignment with the standards and the instructional scope. You know, at the school level during PLCs, that's where they do horizontal alignment. And so they're looking at their formative assessment on a regular basis to see what it is, what's going on. I can say, I can sit here and say that we are moving.
Yeah.
You know, are we having the kind of growth that we would all like to see? No, probably not. But we are moving, and we've got to celebrate the forward progress that we're making. And there's one last thing that I'm going to say with this is, you know, everybody thinks that, you know, it's been two and a half years since COVID and that we should be done and we've got a lot of kids, and all you have to do is ask any of our social workers. We've got a lot of kids that are still dealing emotionally with the trauma of going through COVID. And so we're not out of the woods. And I talk to superintendents all over the state of New Mexico, and they tell me the same thing. It's not just Hatch, New Mexico. It is everywhere. We've got a lot of kids that are still dealing with trauma of what we went through. We're not there yet.
And also, Mr. Chavez, we also added in those data days that's our focus. So data and PD on those days now, they dive into data right down to the student level. And then the Panorama system, they're putting in intervention plans for students that, you know, are on maybe tier level 2, level 1. They're putting in those intervention plans, level 3. It depends on what they need. And monitoring them, and they are using that system, and they are getting those plans in there. So that's addressing just academics. And so we've really grown in that area. We didn't use the Panorama for that last year. Okay.
And
Thank
so
you.
one thing you asked how much we've spent on academics, not including professional development, software, supplies and materials, classroom supplies and materials were about $720,000 to date.
Thank you.
Okay. The next item on the list is discipline. And so what we've done is we pulled the data from Power School, and that's what you have here by school. I'm not sure the purpose of the request, but
Well-
we did include it here.
Is there a physical form for disciplinary referrals that schools use? Because those, when I look at these, for example, the hazing, 0 at Rio Grande, and that may be the fighting, only there's 3 fights. But out in the community, you hear so much more that's going on that a lot of these numbers just don't jive what's on Instagram, what's on, and I know those that social media, but so is there a physical form that can verify this? For example, are parents being notified when their kid is being suspended, in school suspension? Is there a physical form that parents and students do process that they sign and they're told what policy they broke or anything like that each school has?
Each school has a little bit of a different discipline policy, but I know that's one of the things that Vicente has been working really hard on, is to provide consistency across the district.
Okay.
Excuse me, I'll speak to that. So
Okay.
Santa's more in charge of safety. Welcome, Mr. Chavez, Mr. President and Board. So one thing that we really worked on and we started working on this semester is that specifically question that you're asking about the physical form and actually referencing the actual policy that they violated, the student violated. So before we had to do that is we had to standardize the policy across the board. So last year, we standardized the student handbooks for the most part across all schools. So we had to do that, number one.
I'm
So
looking at Rio Grande, just real quick.
so give me, I don't have the data in front of you.
Oh, yeah,
so
there's, for
I-
example,
I can't,
language vulgarity. I find it amazing that nowadays the kids do not cuss. So to have 0 on there, when I was a
Well-
building principal for the last whatever years, hey, that.
So
but you write it up and you explain
So
to them that language isn't appropriate.
one
So
thing,
why is there?
let me answer your question,
Okay.
okay? So one thing, the next step is
Uh-huh.
to work on a procedure for all staff on how to refer. So we don't have that.
So this data is not
we've
correct
ne-
then? 'Cause
Oh,
there
no,
may
that-
be
No,
other
it's not-
entries.
that's
no,
not correct.
No, the
It's-
data is
it's-
correct.
That's what's
That's,
recorded.
that's correct. So
Yeah.
what we don't have is we don't have a standardized procedure on how to refer across the district. So that's the next step that we're working on right now for a staff, so they know what form to fill out. So we're going to standardize the form across all schools. So there's no different. If there's a sub, if there's a teacher that gets moved halfway throughout the year, they'll have the exact same form. So all these things are working slowly, incrementally, and to provide that exact data. So hopefully by next semester, when you ask that, all of it will
So
be
I
the same.
I do some kind of infraction. I don't get a write-up or anything. I just get a free pass or what for now?
No.
Well, It,
So
it
how-
depends, it also depends on the
so,
infraction,
and
okay, and the level, and the
and-
level of the infraction. If you have somebody that say uses bad language,
Yeah,
well, what is it? I mean, you have to look at what is said, what
So-
was, and then you decide because
Exactly.
yeah, and so you do. So is that an infraction that gets recorded? Because
Correct.
if we looked at every single piece here and we went off of the lowest standard of what we needed, we would be busy and our main objective is to make sure that kids behavior
Mhm.
is addressed
Yeah.
and that they understand what proper behavior
Yeah.
is. And that is the goal. The goal is not just to be petty and discipline them in that regard. Some infractions, depending on the seriousness, absolutely.
Yeah.
But there's different levels of infractions that sometimes, yes, we do a judgment call. Because here's the other thing. Is it a classroom management issue or is it a serious infraction? You know, that needs to be reported. And so it's not, a lot of times it's not black and white. And so, you know, if, you know, what Vicente is talking about is having some consistency where we have the same form, but the infractions of what our kids are doing, that is, sometimes, yes, it is left up to interpretation. You know, is it going to do more harm or not? You know, or is it just something that I need to pull a kid aside and say,
Exactly.
hey, you know what? We don't talk like that here,
Exactly.
you know, and leave it, you know? And so what we're trying not to be is we're trying not to be petty in the different things, because what we're trying to do is we're trying to teach proper behavior at school.
Okay.
That's our goal and objective.
No, and I understand that, but there has to be some kind of documentation. Like I was
So
at the high school, they have you guys have vaping technology or for the bathrooms? And there's nobody-
That's at the high school and the middle
Yeah,
school.
but why was that implemented if there's no infractions? You're wasting money for things that kids aren't doing.
So that's because we saw people vaping.
And
We
there's
actually,
nothing on-
we,
it's not
So-
being documented or recorded, or they're not.
So,
being told-
hold on, sir. You're asking a lot of questions
okay,
and
yeah.
I'd like to answer them, okay?
Okay.
So one, we use that as vape is a tobacco product.
Okay.
So that should be under tobacco product. So I don't know what data you have under there, have there. So I personally know that there is log entries for vaping.
Nobody
I-
does that at the high school.
So,
That's good.
so you might not have the correct data. That,
Oh, okay,
that's
sorry.
what I'm saying.
Okay.
So I know that does get logged.
Okay.
And we do have that.
Like
So,
I'm looking
Wow.
at this middle school and high school incidents of vaping over the course of the year so far.
so we'll look,
High
let,
school has 0.
let me see what data you have and next weekend we can maybe give you a little bit. So I didn't see it. So let me look at it and take a look at it.
I just
Okay.
like to make sure principals are inputting the data so it's real accurate data.
And there's a physical form that goes with it, and if they're not, if it's just a simple conversation, no, we don't talk like that, you know what, hey, you can't be doing that here, that's fine.
So
But when we.
we're working on both of the things that you have, the procedure for that and the physical form are both already in the works, already in the works.
And I agree with what
Yeah.
Mr. Chavez said. I don't enter all of my discipline data when it comes across my desk.
Yeah.
Because I'd be entering data all day long.
Sure.
But at the same time, we want to make sure that we're giving the board an accurate idea of what's coming across that principal's desk, because we need to know what those things that they're addressing look like each week.
So I will say that on the data part, yes, we want to give you accurate data, but we're not doing discipline for the board. We're doing the discipline for the students in the community, and the other students are there. So that's first and foremost, you know what I mean? Yeah,
It's just, for instance, I came across some information, también,
yes,
within the past month. I spoke to Mr. Zamora about it,
Correct.
so.
Being dealt with.
Hopefully it
Yes.
can be addressed. So
correct.
That kind of stuff is just. Speak to somebody that can actually do something
Correct.
about it, and that's
No,
why I spoke to him.
Again, you're talking about morale with the time card thing. If you keep going to Jose, because he keeps saying this bad word, what is considered a bad word? So you take out the vocab, what is considered bad, worse, or extreme?
Mhm.
And Jose, that's his favorite word.
Yeah.
So you keep writing him up. You're demoralizing that child. Instead of taking him to the side, Mira, Jose, you already have 50 reports.
No,
You have 50 pink slips.
And I didn't
And
say that, but-
instead of taking him to the side, Mira, Jose,
No, and I was
do you
the type of
talk-
kid.
do you talk that way in front of your mom?
No, every time. You don't, you want.
But you're asking them to write down everything.
No, I'm just making that as an example. I'm just saying that this doesn't represent what is, it's truly happening. There's, like at the high school, there's one fight. I've seen more fights. There's been more than one fight at the high school this last semester, right?
This semester,
Yeah,
we
but
just
it's
started,
only
so there's been
46.
no fights this semester.
I mean, just to start, but from January, from July 31 until January 5th, there's one fight, and I know there's been more than.
We'll
one
look
fight
at the
high school.
data, man. We'll look
I
at
know,
the,
but that's what I'm
we'll look
saying.
at the
Give us
data.
Data that's correct,
we'll
and
get-
that's what just threw me.
Next
Right?
meeting,
Yeah.
we'll have you the right
Okay.
data.
All right,
We'll get you what you need.
yeah, I appreciate that,
You're welcome.
because I did look at it and it just jumped out at me, that it just didn't seem right.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, the next
Thank
piece is student performance. And so again, I know the request was to look at formative assessment. What you have is you have school by school. You have the formative assessments that are required by the state. You've got iStation for the lower grades. You've got iMasa for 3 through 8, and you've got HMH. And the only thing that I'm going to add to that is that high school did submit, and I gave you a different addendum, that more accurately reflects the process of where they're at. And so I'm not sure what we're seeing. We did have, as you guys know, in our calendar, we do have data days where the whole building is looking at data, looking at formative assessments. But also, as part of that process, the Tuesday before, I meet with all principals and we talk about, they present their data and we have those conversations. We have that reflective conversations about what's going on, what's moving, what's working, what's not working. Why are we seeing kids not moving? So we're looking at all the different movement that is happening. So one of the things that we're really focused on is the number of kids that are in intensive level or the red level, right? And because those kids, if we don't have an urgency to really work on those kids, they're always going to be behind. And so that's one of the things that we've been focused on. It's not that proficiency isn't important, but we also got to be realistic in all of this. And we have to look at all the different levels and see where we're having some movement. Some schools are growing really well. Some are kind of stagnant. And you know, so we're looking at that. So what's happening for the ones that are stagnant? We don't see a whole lot of regressions, which is what I'm really happy about. You know, we're working hard. Our staff is working hard. Our principals are working hard. We're working. You asked about the instructional system. You know, I mean, those are all the pieces that are taking place. It's that data review. It starts with the data-driven instruction, but it's also looking through PLCs. What do we need to do? And so some of our principals are having those difficult conversations with some of our teachers because we are breaking it down by teacher so that we can identify what teachers are being effective and which ones need help. And what I want to point out here is that this is not a gotcha. Okay, we want all of our staff to feel supported. And because the ultimate goal is to make sure that they are being successful, because we know when our teachers are successful, then our kids are going to be successful. And so we are having those those reflective conversations. We're having those critical conversations with staff. But, you know, we also have to recognize that our instructional practice does need to change, you know, and so we've talked just yesterday with the principals, we talked about the difference between the science of teaching versus the art of teaching. And, you know, we could provide all the science of teaching and provide them all the strategies, all the materials, but it is the intrinsic piece of the art of teaching that really, and the passion that teachers have got to show and have in order to get kids to move forward and to move beyond. We have a lot of that already going on. Okay. And so we celebrate our growth. I think we're in a good position right now. And you know, we're midway through. We still got another semester to go. But here's the other thing. In my experience, I also want to point out that the formative assessments that we have, with the exception of iStation, because that's just a progression, but IMASA and the MASA, the difference between the formative and the summative assessment doesn't always translate. And so, so you're going to have different measures, you're going to have different outcomes. And so we try to look at different tools to give us the data that we need. So for example, one of the data that I shared with the principals yesterday was our Lexile levels at the middle school and at the high school. And so, yes, you know, you look at some of this data and you say, wow, you know, we're really low, but we're really monitoring growth. And with some of our we have averages in Lexile level of 100 points, and in some cases 200-point gains. And so they're making up ground. But yes, do we have some of the kids that are still academically behind? Absolutely. You know, I attribute a lot of that, you know, to COVID. You know, our kids were impacted severely by COVID. We regress, in my opinion, about 2 academic years. And we have been working hard to get out of that. And so one of the things that we've been looking at is, you know, the kids, the COVID kids versus the kids after COVID, post-COVID. And we're seeing some tremendous results. So all of our post-COVID kids are all the kids that are in grades K, 1 and 2 right now. And you can see at both Garfield and at Hatch Elementary, we've got really good growth going on there. Okay. 3 through 12. Not so much. These are the kids that are academically behind, and we're working really hard to narrow that gap. It's not going to happen right away, but yes, we are working hard. We're trying to identify what needs to be improved in our instructional practice. Is it materials? You know, that's the other thing, is having those conversations about, you know, the textbooks that we have. You know, are they appropriate? You know, and we've switched over in some cases. We've abandoned some of the things that we've had in favor of something else that we believe might work better. But it is through that data analysis that we're making some of those decisions. You know, math continues to be an issue with us.
Mr. Travis, are you guys still doing the house days? I know last year we would do that.
No, not like we were in
No,
the past. Yes.
But not like you were, like
No.
those days are academic days now.
Yes, sir.
Right? Okay.
Yes. So those are data days.
Those are academic days. No
Those
longer
are,
all
so
data.
what we've identified with the data days is the mornings is spent on this, analyzing data, looking at where are we at, you know, where do we need to improve and that sort of thing. The second half is a little more flexible. So we're looking at professional development. For example, the next data day in February, in the afternoon, Vicente is our safety coordinator, is looking at active shooter training for the whole.
I mean,
for the
house
whole
days,
district.
not the data days, but like house days, the kids are.
That's what I'm saying, is that we no longer have the house days like we used to.
So it's academics.
Yes,
it's no
sir.
longer- Okay,
Yes, sir.
that's good.
Okay.
And one other thing, if Mr. Chavez, if we could please have these in color.
Yeah.
I cannot. Especially without a legend or a key, it's difficult.
We do have everything
I can't see
electronically,
what you have.
so we could forward it over to you. Yes, in the future, we'll make sure that you have color. But for all this data, what we can do is we can send it to you electronically, and you'll have it in color. Okay. The last piece, before I have just one announcement, is the area of safety. And one of the things that Mr. Montes has been interested in is in the window security film. And so Vicente has been working hard to get us information on that. And so he's here to present that information.
All right, good evening, board. So at the beginning of the school year, Mr. Chavez and I were talking about some infrastructure needs that we can use to upgrade the school, considering safety items. In particular, one of the items that came up was ballistic film. We actually I met with a guy at one of our safety summits that we had. It's our first annual safety summit for New Mexico schools. It was a pretty big deal, a lot of people there. So he came down and we met and we spoke a little bit and we talked about measuring the schools and seeing what we can do for safety film. As you see, there's only 4 out of the 5 schools there. That's for a reason. The amount of windows at the high school and the feasibility of doing this and trying to get some done. That's why it's not on there. So if you look at your packet on there from Mr. Fernando on tactical safety, Garfield's about 37,000, 38,000. Hatch Elementary's 14,000, RG's 42,000, Hatch Valley Middle School's 28,000. For a total about $129,000. So the theory or what we want to try to do is get Garfield done. That's priority 1. The most distance, the farthest away. We don't have anybody there. At the high school, me and Aurora are there constantly. We're there at the middle school a lot as well. So we don't have as much protection as we do as an elementary. So they are the priority in this project. So what we're doing is we're looking for support from the board and funding to at least get Garfield done this fiscal year.
And
So-
high school, how can we, like, what would that look like?
So the high school would probably be $128,000 total. For
Just
just
the
the
high
high school alone. Just if you look at the amount of windows, the way that building is built, it would be tough. It'd be a lot. And I'm not saying not to do it, but we have resources there. We have a lot of people there. There's a lot of movement at the high school. There's a lot of doors at the high school. So we can do a lot of things there. And it's just, I don't think it'd be practical right now. Yeah, let's, all the other schools are fenced in except for the front. So let's start there. Let's fortify those ones physically as best as we can and move towards.
And we
the-
sent that at the high school right now. What are those windows at all shatterproof or anything like that?
No, they're just regular windows,
windows.
like every school. Back when Hatch Elementary is our newest school, but 2001, 2003 is when that school was built. All the stuff that we're talking about today, I wouldn't have a job back then, right? In this small school, no, they didn't even consider a safety officer at Hatch public schools back then. Maybe Cruces or Albuquerque public schools would have something like that, but no, we don't have anything like that. And what this is it's film, right? It's not a window. It's a film on the back of a window. And what they do is they layer windows. So they have 2 different types. This is for the most protective. This is a ballistic resistant. They have a Riot that's cheaper than this, but Riot, a bullet will penetrate either one, but definitely will penetrate the Riot. So this is aimed to slow down a bullet, right? We're trying to get time. If you saw the video from Nashville, I don't know if you guys seen that. So the person was able to get in easily, right? This is to slow them down.
And what caliber would it stop? Would it stop at
It-
223 or 556?
It depends on distance and stuff like that.
Okay.
Yes.
What
How
does
does-
it say? Like, what kind of bullet?
Well, it'll stop like a 22 9mm. A rifle, it's very
Like a
difficult
top.
to stop a rifle, but
Okay.
it's gonna do is it's gonna slow down the feet per second tremendously, and that's what we want,
Maybe
right?
not
It's
let
still
them
gonna
get in,
fragment the window,
But it won't
yes.
let them get in.
It won't
through the
let them
window,
get in.
Right?
It won't let them get in, and that's what we want,
Slows
right?
them Down.
And Garfield, what we need is time.
Time. Yeah,
Yes,
I agree with
yes,
that.
Luca.
Are they tinted? You
No.
can see out?
You can
They-
see, they look just like regular
Oh.
glass. They look like regular glass.
So what would be the cost for them not to see in and you can see out?
We would have to tint that window. They don't have.
Oh,
tint.
so this is a different kind of
It's-
tint kind of thing?
Yes, it's a
just the film.
different type. Yes.
Okay.
I guess it's all tint in some
Okay.
type of, but not one that you kind of put on your car.
Oh, okay.
How does it hold up to that direct sunlight that beats down on it?
So we talked about that a lot. So this company is from Phoenix. They're out of Phoenix and they've done a lot of work. They did they've done a lot over there and they've done a lot in El Paso Independent School District, Socorro Independent School District, Artesia has outfitted almost all their schools with their product. They have a 10-year warranty on this product, right? And its lifetime is 10 years as well. So yeah, it's gonna take a beating. And I'll be honest, this is all new technology. So we don't know. You know what I mean? School safety in its current form is new. It's not all these things that we're adding. It's not, we don't have that much data. Yeah, we don't have 30 years worth of data where I can tell you that this is stood up to the test of time and this temperature and stuff like that. Don't have that.
I make a motion to approve.
Well, it's not an action item.
Oh, it's not an action
It's
item
just
today?
Yeah.
part of the report.
Oh,
So we could
when?
bring it back.
Mr. Chavez, is there money left over from any of our ESSER funds that could pay cover?
Our
some of
ESSER
this?
funds have already been encumbered.
They've already been
So,
encumbered?
yeah, no, this would have to be paid for out of a
Out of
different funding
operation.
source.
So again, well, if it comes up for discussion again, it would be nice to get the whole thing, but we understand that this needs, safety's done in steps, because school safety is expensive. It's expensive. Everybody talks about it and how important it is, but the businesses ain't making it any cheaper, I'll tell you that. So if anything, if we could get Garfield and start there, it would be definitely a start for our most littlest kids that we have.
So we can have that on the agenda.
We
for-
can have that as an action.
An
item for the
action
next
item.
agenda. Yeah. In the meantime, what we can do is, knowing that the board supports this, we can start getting a better idea of what it's going to cost and maybe get on the schedule and that sort of thing, preliminary.
And look for money.
Looking
Yeah.
forward, would it be feasible to do more than one school?
They give you a discount?
That is-
Sheila's our money person,
Oh,
so
that is our discount.
That's the discount.
For all four of us. dude.
That's a discount when it comes to safety.
I think I think we can look at every avenue and look at this. I think it's steep to include everything. However, we can see how far we can get. So.
There is talk that there will be more safety money coming through the legislative session. And so I know Vicente's looked for grants for all of this. If we were to move forward with Garfield, it's under 60,000. It wouldn't necessarily need board approval. We could move forward.
Okay.
I think we should move
Is that the
forward.
pleasure
I
of the board?
think we should move forward and see if we could go with more than just one school if it would be possible.
Okay.
As soon as possible, because that's one of our biggest concerns is our kids, so.
So
Their safety.
I will tell you that they're not gonna do any of the job till the spring. They don't put the film on in the winter. So they had a job that they did at one of the New Mexico public schools in the winter and the film didn't adhere very well. So they had to redo the whole school.
It's got a
So,
cook.
yes,
Gotta
it's gotta
cook
it's gotta be pliable. So when the spring, if everything goes well, we'll schedule them as soon as we can.
How
When-
backlog
So
are
hopefully
they?
by then we have.
I think they have enough staff to do.
Do they?
Yes.
Vicente, just
sir.
a quick question. So let's say, I know it's warranted for 10 years. Let's say a kid goes along and takes a razor blade or takes a pencil and gouges it. Is
So
that covered under that warranty?
There's an additional money. If you keep going down, scrolling down, you'll see a 10 kind of a thing and they'll replace any window or any film for that amount. I think it's $10,000.
Okay.
Yeah. And-
Yearly or one time
And for the
Year.
life
for the
of
lifetime?
the film. So in 10 years, so that I guess they had a school in Socorro Independent School District in El Paso
Mhm.
where they keep breaking the windows. And he said, I've already lost money on that window because I've gone several times to replace that window in the film.
Mhm.
So that's something to consider whenever we do it. And I'll have a better answer for you on if somebody cuts it with a razor blade or something like that. I'll ask them specifically for that question. Because you really can't even see.
They shouldn't
Is
have a
that-
razor blade first.
Right.
Oh,
Hopefully,
they do.
yes,
First,
but I'll have that.
Okay. The last is just an announcement. We do have the ribbon cutting for the food bank that is going to be right across the street. This is a partnership that we've had with the Casa de Peregrinos and also the Village of Hatch, where we are establishing a permanent food bank. That'll be, like I said, housed right here. It'll be open, is it 5 days a week, 4 or 5 days a week? Olivia, do you know? Okay, 2, 3 days. So, and they're going to be very strategic in the operating hours. They want to do it in the evenings or in the afternoons, late afternoons, so that parents can come pick up their kids and then stop over, pick up food, and then go home. And so, the ribbon cutting will be at 3 o'clock on Friday. And
This
so.
Friday
This Friday?
Yes.
at 3 p.m.
Yeah.
Mr. President, if I may,
Mhm.
can we invite, Greg,
Absolutely.
Lupe,
Yes.
and Merle, because they were a big part of this.
Yep.
And is this simply food that they have there? They're gonna have, will they have clothing for the children as well, or simply?
No, not, that's
a
a
clothing
separate
bank.
thing.
That's
So,
separate.
so one of the things that we have, started is a clothing bank. And so Miss Olivia Paez is, she oversees that. And, we work in partnership with, help me. We know we have the grandmas that volunteer and help there, but, we have an organization out of Las Cruces that helps us with providing the clothes.
We've made a partnership with the domestic violence, La Casa in Las Cruces. So they get a lot of things donated that they don't actually use. I understand that they had a big storage building where they had a lot of clothing. And they go through the clothing first, vet it, make sure that it's something that's usable. And we have one of our community person, Miss Waters, who goes down, Miss Hernandez, she goes down, picks up the clothing and brings it to us. We're lucky to have, I did report at our last data meeting that we had 160 volunteer hours that were donated to us by community members like these ladies to sort and to put the clothing up. We've had usage of that clothing bank tremendously. So I don't have the data with me because I wasn't expecting to speak about it, but anyway, at least we open at least once or twice a month. And during that time, we've served about 50 to 60 families every time with maybe like 120, 130 people in their family group. What our plan is if we can get enough volunteers to open when Peregrinos is open. So people who come to Peregrinos can go over there too, and they can utilize them both at the same time.
And we're still utilizing the old nursing office, right?
The old nurse's office,
Yes.
we're hoping that, once we move into the new building, it'll include, as you guys know, we'll have SPED in there, but we'll also have technology in there. And so that'll free up the portable building that they currently, are using. And we're thinking about putting the, clothing bank there. It'll give them more room. It'll be more accessible. And, we also have that piece of land for sale. So we have to start thinking about that also. If we have somebody that comes and buys that, we need to have a different home for them. So this is just thinking proactively to start making the move. And I just want to state that one of the things that's been important to us is making sure that our kids' most basic needs are being met. And so we have a lot of families with food insecurities. We have a lot of families with clothing issues. And we've had several examples of the impact that's had. And so as we talk about academics, we talk about school culture, we talk about SEL. Well, this is just another couple of layers that we provide so that we have a solid foundation for kids to do well, to be successful. And it's interesting to me. It always blows me away when we have stories of kids that don't attend school because they don't have shoes. And so this provides an avenue for that. And so what we're doing is we're removing those kind of barriers. And Olivia, I know you have a situation where we had we had some kids that were having a hard time at school. And I believe it's
So
one of the volunteers.
So we had some kids that we were consistently calling Child Protective Services. It was at least 2 or 3 times a school year that Child Protective Services was called in. They would go and they would visit the family, but there was no resources. Since the clothing bank has been started and since people have been using it, this particular family, we haven't had to call Child Protective Services since then. So Those are little examples of how important it is to provide the basic rung when it comes to the hierarchy of needs. Kids who don't have their basic needs met are not really able to come up to the higher, you know that, when it comes to education. So if you provide some of those basic needs, then you're going to have a much better result when you talk about test scores.
When a kid comes to school, say on Monday and they don't have a jacket, do we have
Yes,
articles in every school to make sure that they go home with a jacket?
yes.
Yeah, well,
We
and
do.
yeah.
We
So
do.
what we do is we have the process, every one of our schools has a social worker. But they're in communication with Olivia, who works at the district level. And so that we provide those things. So for example, I'm just gonna brag on her right now because, she came in here earlier today, took a couple of backpacks and said, I gotta go take these to the kids. There was a couple of kids that needed a backpack. And so that's what we're doing. We're just, again, meeting the needs of the kids.
For you.
So, awesome.
All right, that concludes, unless there's any other questions, that concludes my superintendent's report.
Any question? Thank you, Mr. Chavez. Item number 3, limited public input, Ms. Ramirez. Oh, she's online. Is there any public input?
Elsa, did we have anybody request public comment?
No, sir. No, sir.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Item number 4, approval of financial. Consider approval of December 23 bills. Do I have a motion to approve December 23 bills?
I didn't catch anything.
I didn't either.
I would make a motion to approve as
Second.
presented.
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Guy. Okay, can we have a vote? Mr. Legarreta?
Aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. So 4A is approved. Now for 4B, consider approval of budget adjustment request, transfer and cash requests. Before we get to that, I have questions with that. I'm not sure how to, I couldn't find those, or what specifically does that mean?
So if you flip to my tab is orange, I'm not sure. Right after
So
the bills.
Okay.
Yeah, it's on orange. Is it
on
orange?
Orange, okay.
So what the prior board president asked me to do is present it in this format. So it shows the line and the description, the current budget and the increase or the decrease, and then the adjusted budget. So I upload this into OBMS, and then when it's submitted, then you would see the new adjusted budget would be now the new current budget. So,
So like, for example, 11,000, but I also see like more line items like 11,000, 21, 52, but there's a bunch there, so I'm not sure, like,
well, so if you look through the board, can
Uh-huh.
I come over there?
yeah, well, sure.
So this is the 11. You have
Okay,
11,000 fund, and you'll have a maintenance bar within 1,000 and a maintenance bar within
Yes.
2,000.
Okay,
Then you move down to this is transportation, Title one is a transfer bar from 1,000 to 2,100.
okay.
And then migrant, then 2,000, you cannot do that all at once. You have to do it separately. This is that 3, that 4, that's it. So each,
So like,
there's also.
so the 1,000,
Here, just lists all the funds. These are the funds.
Oh.
And then anything that we get a letter from PED.
I saw those,
check,
yeah.
That's additional. So this is just moving between maintenance bars. Do not need PED approval, only the transfer bar. So this is transfers, cash request and maintenance bars, all of it. So you approve that and I submit it to PED.
okay,
And
all right, thank you.
so, sorry if you could not hear that.
no.
Typically, the bars are dealing with benefits.
Okay,
So at the beginning of, well, the end of this year, we will be creating the budget for next year. We do not know which employees will take out which benefits. which insurance, high, low options. If they'll add their kids at Christmas, they can, of course, change their plan during open enrollment. I did have a lot of adjustments to health and medical insurance premiums this.
So can you put that, so for example, for 11,000, what was the adjustment or what was the difference or,
They zero out.
okay?
So you're going from one line to the other. So
Okay.
at the, on page 2, at the top, there's a total line.
See, shoot.
So each fund and each function will have a separate maintenance bar.
Okay.
And then the total on the debit column matches the total on the credit. The beginning budget matches the
Okay.
end budget. A maintenance bar is actually not required. Each function must stay positive during the year. But as long as the function is positive, it's not an issue. It's just from one line to the next. So really the budget is that, the second set of numbers, the 1,000 or the 2,100. So it's just making sure we have the money in the right line. And so the job class, the program code, each benefit, all those are technically separate budgets. So we're just moving it to the right line, maintenance bars.
Thank
And
you.
so the one transfer bar is on 24101, I believe. I think that's on the bottom of page 3. Yes, page 3. We are using some excess salary line on that top one, which is a bilingual teacher salary. So we had budgeted for a full-time teacher. The position was not filled immediately, so there's money left over. And so we're moving that to cover health and medical premiums
Okay.
for library aides. So that 1218 is the $12,000. So again, last year, the legislative session changed our percentages for anyone making under 50,000. The district pays 80% of their insurance. So really, it was a guesstimate. I had no idea which EAs or library aides or transportation or anybody what benefits they would take. And again, if they took a low option versus a high option, or if they added their kids or their family or whatever, multitude of possibilities there. That's why there is a change there. And this, since it is at this time of the year, I would assume that this is either new employees or someone added insurance. I also was told by my staff that we've had people come in and get insurance because the new increase caused them to lose other insurances.
Okay.
Do you have any other
No
questions?
Thank you. Appreciate that.
And so then the next one is Casa de Peregrinos. Again, the food bank across the street, when they were working on it, there were some electrical issues that were not on the original PO. And they really needed those specific things done before we could do the open house. So they have brought us a check. I've attached the check. And the contractor's working on these items, but we actually have to get it approved to do an increased bar to the budget. But this is earmarked for that building. And then the next one is award to replace a second bus. So the signature page on the grant agreement actually doesn't specify that, but it does specify that it's for 2 buses. So page 1 is essentially approval for the second bus, and page 12 of 12. It's right. Yeah, so that page right there approves the purchase of the bus.
Okay.
And it even tells us which bus we're replacing. Then,
Oh, okay, good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
so PED sends us the money for our buses, and they require that we purchase the air conditioners. We will be paying, I think Eduardo said about 13,000 per bus because we add cameras and other things. So, I'm not exactly sure. I leave that to him. He's the expert there.
And then the old
And-
bus stays in the fleet, correct, for a while? Or is it immediately sold?
It depends if it's still eligible to be used or not. If
Okay.
it's end of life, then no, it doesn't.
How
It
long
just
does
sits
the
there.
end of life? Is it
10 years and How many miles?
I don't know the criteria right off the
Oh.
top of my head.
How many?
12 years.
12 years.
Yeah, so we will be presenting a disposition of property resolution to you at the next board meeting or the next one. We cannot sell these until, of course, we receive the new buses, but we want to be prepared, and we have gone to auction for those. So there's that. The next one is an allocation. This is some ARP money that was earmarked from PED for the homeless program. So there are two separate funds, and I still haven't figured out what the difference is between 24355 and 24350. But Olivia and I have been working on this and how to spend that down. So this money does expire at the end of the year. So $10,000 and $4,000, más o menos. And then we also have some backup documentation on that, and it does show the expiration dates of the loans and when we need to spend it. The next page is the fiscal recap. So right before the green tab is a recap, and this just shows you of our expenses. And again, I'm sorry, I did not know this was not in color. One section, the budget available is the darker section. So out of the entire budget and encumbered to date, we have about a third left. But this includes capital projects. I mean, this includes everything. So, and lower, you can see month by month, the left line on each is prior year. And then in December, you see our expenses were even less than last year in December. Just as we move forward in the year, again, we cannot figure out what their detailed summary line means. So it's just it doesn't change any, so I'm not sure what that is. But so now I would entertain a motion to approve the bars as presented.
Okay, wait, I do have a question on page 1 for the fund, 11,000. 53, it says purchased professional service
I'm not,
on right after the, I don't know.
this is a report out of iVisions. And I
So, but it says there's $145,000 budgeted, and on page 1, am I looking right after the one you just looked at, this one right here? I just, what is, like, what
Oh,
kind of
okay.
professional services? Can we break that down more, or is there, we have to leave it that broad?
it's this report, it's that broad.
There's-
Because this is reporting on the type of object code. So
Okay.
5.1s are salaries, 5.2s are benefits, 5.3 is services that it would include, depending though on whether it's function 1,000, function 2,100, 2,200. Some professional services would include,
So we could break it down more. by
I
month.
could give you a copy of the budget, but see, it's
Okay.
going to look more like this
Yeah,
page.
okay.
This is what we're looking at.
Look at-
So
okay.
again, then you're going to have a program code, which is going to be CTE, bilingual, regular ed, at-risk programs. Each of these lines is a mini budget. And so that's why we're moving from one to the next. If we're not using it in one, or I have to budget for all EAs to have health insurance. But if they don't take it, I can move it to the lines that actually did buy the insurance, because we don't know at the beginning of the year who will use it. Same thing with instructional materials. I budget more than our allocation for instructional materials, but I worked with Dr. Hull and we develop, a budget on what we anticipate for our approved curriculum. That's a separate line. And then we also have other textbooks, and then we have other instructional materials. So there's 3 separate codes plus dual language instructional materials. So every code, and so I've worked with Brandy on that as well. So it's every single program and object is a budget itself.
Thank you.
Um,
Okay, do I have a motion to approve? Do I have a second? Okay. All right, let's go ahead and vote. Mr. Legarreta,
Yes.
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 Yes, motion carries.
Thank you.
Approved. Okay, unfinished business, item 5 on the agenda. Consider approval of relocating portable buildings.
So this is an item that was on here in the previous month. And one of the things that we've been talking about is, as I mentioned earlier, we have this piece of land over here that is for sale. And right now we have our sped department that are in the 2 portables that are over there. The appraisal for the property did not include those 2 portable buildings. And so it's something that if we ever got to the point where we sold that property, we would need to move the portable buildings. But what we've been doing is we've been looking at how can we repurpose them. And so we've got a couple of ideas. One of them is to provide another set of bathrooms, but also a changing or locker type rooms for our baseball, softball, soccer, boys and girls, especially when we have game days. We're using one of those for that. We've also have toyed with the idea of expansion of the childcare center over at our high school. That one's a little more tricky than what we had anticipated, because what we learned is that if we're going to use it for that, it's got to have a separate fire system, and the cost to do that is just it's not worth it. And so what we're looking at is looking at other ideas. Can we use that as a classroom? The other thing that the other need that we have is our track team doesn't have access to, well, they have access to bathrooms, but it's part of the main building at the middle school. We're also thinking, well, maybe we need to put it out there for the same purpose as what we have for baseball, softball, boys and girls soccer. So we're not sure. We're not totally sure how we're going to use them at this point. But and we don't have quotes yet because of the holidays. It was too difficult to get quotes on what that's going to cost. But we just wanted to put this on there again to see if the board is still interested in moving forward. Is it the pleasure of the board to continue that plan?
And once again, Mr. Chavez, how much are we looking at to move the 2 portables?
It's
Roughly?
it's going to be significant. And so we don't have an actual quote.
No, I saw that, but it's,
Yeah, so but you can see, this is just an estimate from the architect that the village uses, and that has worked with the schools in the past. And we're looking at, it's a significant amount. However, it's cheaper than
Building.
new construction,
yeah.
right? And so it's one of those things where, we've got to look at it and see, how do we weigh it out?
Roughly about 290 per.
Right.
Is that what that?
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot.
Would you be able to sell or even donate those portables elsewhere? I mean, because to move that, I mean, if somebody were to come in and say, hey, we could use it for our chili plant or something, as long as they move it, or
We have put portable buildings for auction.
Mhm.
And we have sold portable buildings in the past. We worked with the charter school out of Las Cruces that needed portable buildings, and so we did sell the portable buildings to them. Yes, we could, but I think those portable buildings, I think all we got for them was about $5,000. Is that right, Sheila?
It's not,
About $5,000. It's,
and the kids, I mean, the space is sorely needed. They need it out there.
yeah,
And the bathrooms are ready to go. Everything's like,
they do. So they have two big classrooms. And then in the middle, they have 2 bathrooms.
so they're functioning. If they were to hook up, they'd be. Fine.
And that's why this is so expensive, because it's not just the relocation, but it's also the connecting of the utilities. So electricity, the sewer, water, it's all those
But
pieces.
inside it doesn't need remodeling though. It's ready to go.
No,
Carpet's
it's
good,
pretty much ready to go.
Okay.
yeah, that's what I was saying. Like, if I know the kids need that, and that was what I would like to put that money towards. Is I know new construction can be expensive,
Right.
but if you do smaller buildings, like a metal building, it's actually pretty cheap. I've done it myself, and you could put up a building, a brand new building, our colors and everything, and it fixed to the ground and for well under that price.
Well, so here's what you need to consider with that, is that there's a difference between residential buildings that you build
Yeah, commercial.
and commercial. And so commercial is a lot more expensive. And so some of the things that we've been seeing and just the remodels that we've been doing around the district, it's significant. It does cost a lot. It's still cheaper to remodel and to use what you have than it is for new construction. So just to give you an example, one of the things that we've been looking at is a new football field house and looking at it from that perspective of metal building. To do like the basic structure of what we would need and space, which would be about half of what we currently have. And so it was going to cost more in new construction than it is to totally remodel what we currently have. And so the prices since COVID have just shot up tremendously. And so we could do another analysis and we can look at what new construction would cost. But right now, just from our experience and what we're looking at, it's very, very costly to do new construction.
Are you looking at this fiscal year or moving it into next fiscal year?
We'd like to get it done this year,
Fiscal year.
and
And
so
the
that-
district could afford that cost right now?
Yes.
You know, right now softball, baseball, they're having to walk all the way to the school, get dressed, visiting team. They go into our school, get dressed, and then walk to the baseball field, softball field. Instead of having that there, having their stuff there, not leaving their stuff in the side of the school. That way the schools don't have to be, again, in the middle school, we don't have anything. They're having to go in the school to use the bathrooms. Where are they changing? That way they have that accessibility
Right.
to change in there as well as have the bathrooms.
No, agreed. And that's I'd like that for the kids, but
Yeah.
I would, if you could just look into it, maybe and
Absolutely.
see the new construction. I just feel it would make the school grounds look even better.
Oh, I agree. New construction would always be better.
Yeah.
This is just another, we're looking at them and just asking ourselves, how can we repurpose them?
Right.
But if we went new construction, then absolutely we would just sell them and get rid of them.
Red, white panel, square all the way.
If I may, on the consolidated board report, that one we were just looking at on page 2 at the top. We have 1.4 million in construction, purchase property services, which is construction services. So I've budgeted knowing that we needed to do something this year. So that's what the board approved at the end of last year for this year. So there is money, and we did communicate with PED about this when we submitted that we did need, we at that point thought we would do field house. And so they said it's possible, but we may need to do some more letters of approval or something to move forward. But we wanted to make sure before we spent someone's time giving us quotes on all this, that you were interested in moving them.
But it does say approval, so can we just, how would we go about that?
And so we can't really approve because we don't have actual quotes for you.
Okay.
So, what we need to know is, this is just, do we want us to move forward with that? We table this right now and then bring it back when we have actual quotes and we have solid numbers.
And with those numbers, you would still want the new construction but that would take some time, right? To figure out new construction.
Yeah.
And all that, and we couldn't get that done. There's no way this.
I have some numbers for you. I mean, this is,
Rough.
Sanchez just left. When we were looking at the field house, so we were looking at 1.4 million to build on the other side of the canal, or 750,000 to build on, to remodel. So that's the difference, and that's
Wow.
half of this building. So those are the numbers we're talking. So to move this, yes, it seems to me it's astronomical. I can't believe it,
How much was?
but
Do you
it's
remember how much it
so
was
much
for the
less.
bathrooms? Softball? The baseball? Just-
Oh, what we currently, no, I don't. I don't have.
I don't have that information.
If you guys would like, you still have the plans for refurbishing of the field house, right?
Yes, yes.
You're more than welcome to go check those out, those plans.
So
They're
we're in the
out there.
process now of trying to get a quote on what it's gonna cost. But again, the board have approved moving forward to looking at the total remodeling of the field house. And we're trying to see if we can make it happen before the football season. It's not looking like that's gonna happen, but at least we're moving forward, you know. The other thing that we'd like to do is, and so the whole purpose of moving the field house over to the other side of the canal is so that our kids didn't have to cross the canal. Because you know, during football season, the canal is running. And so one of the things that Fernie is looking into is, could we get some type of agreement with the irrigation district? My understanding is there used to be a bridge or something that went right
Yes.
across.
We tried.
And
already.
so
A few years back,
it's
we
not,
try to get EPID to.
Yeah.
Meet us halfway in building a new bridge right
Yeah.
across the street.
and so if we did that and we got a straight shot, then that wouldn't be such an issue. But I don't know I did hear from the village that there is plans for that canal to be totally enclosed, but I don't know how far that's going to be done. I know they're focused on the bridge where they've had to shut down Canal Road. That's what they're focused on, but I don't know how far down they're going to be coming down and enclosing the canal. So those are still some things that we've got to look at.
Personally, I think we should look into moving the portables. My daughters are soccer, softball, and they're having to walk. They don't have anywhere to change. I think it's a good idea to do it. We have the facilities.
Agree with that.
So if we could, like I said, my recommendation would be just to table this until we can get you some solid numbers on this is just like estimates, but actually get you quotes on what that's going to cost.
Okay, do I have
And then
a
you guys can
motion?
vote on it well, whenever we get it, hopefully by February.
Oh, we don't need.
You don't need a
No,
motion?
well, you need a motion to table.
Oh, I do?
Yeah.
Right. Oh, okay. Do I have a motion to table relocating the portable buildings?
So moved.
Second.
Second by Mr. Montes. Okay, we'll go ahead and vote. Those in favor say yes.
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 Yes, yes. Yes. Okay, item 5B, consider approval of amending additional legal counsel.
Okay, so this came to the board last month for services of additional legal counsel. And I know, Richard, you had some questions on that. And so we do have Roxy here with us, and that is from Welsh Gallegos, who is going to do a presentation on the details of the contract and the services, who would access it, all the questions that you had, Mr. Marcus.
Okay,
So
thank
Roxy?
you.
Good evening, members of the board, Mr. President, members of the board, Superintendent Chavez. He introduced me as Roxy de Santiago, but I know that virtually everyone in this room doesn't know who that is because I'm not trying to catfish you. I'm from the great city of Hatch, and y'all know my family. I'm from the Rawls family, and Roxy's my first name. Patricia is my middle name, and I was always too shy to use my first name until I grew up. So you know me as Pat Rawls, maybe, or my family, my brothers, my older brothers. But it is my extreme pleasure and honor to be here in my hometown. Every time I do this presentation at other schools across the state of New Mexico, the first thing I say is that I'm from the great city of Hatch. And everybody always asks me, well, where's my chili? I said, go find it in Hatch. There's all kinds of people who can sell it to you. I know that we're here on business, and I have the honor of being an attorney. I've been working in school law for 20 years. It'll be 20 years in August. And I have a packet that I'd like to hand each of you so I can explain the contract that was provided.
And Roxy, I'm so sorry, one of the things that I learned when I came here to the Hatch Valley is that everybody's on first name basis.
Yes, I know.
And so I mean no disrespect when I address you just by your first name.
You're fine. My mom would be mad at me, however, if I didn't address you appropriately. And y'all know my mom, she's not a softie. Rosario Rawls. Yeah. Other side of the track, Spring Canyon, that way. Mr. President, members of the board, what you have in front of you in your folder are two different items. On the right-hand side is the letter that I forwarded to Superintendent Chavez after his inquiry to my office. And on the left-hand side is the benefits of the retainer program. So it's actually the benefits on the top with the retainer program behind it. So there's a lot of reading there. I'm just going to explain it in non-legal Hatch language, because that's where we're at, right? All right. So first of all, I want to start out just by pointing out to you what your own policies say about board counsel. So your board attorney counsel policy is in B 1250. It says board attorneys are retained by the board as counsel for the board to provide legal service on any matter related to the operation of the district. The attorneys may be asked to provide legal advice, render legal opinions, prepare resolutions, review proposed board actions, represent the board in a court of law, or provide other legal services the board or the superintendent may request on behalf of the district. The next paragraph says the board designates the superintendent as the sole administrator with access to the board's legal attorney for legal information. So it really is set out in two sort of separate subparts. One, as an attorney, as any attorney for any district across the state of New Mexico, my duty is to the district. And my primary client, if you will, is always the board. So for example, Mr. Marcus, congratulations, you're now board president. Under your policies, whomever you select as your board counsel, you can call them up. So from our meeting today, just in terms of what I heard today, there were questions about the agenda language. There were questions about the policies. There were questions about can we table something or not table something. There was questions about school safety. All of those things that you would have a question about, you would be able to call your board counsel, ask them about. Sometimes you know about it in advance. And so for school districts where I represent other boards, I will have a meeting with the board president or a phone call with the board president, and they'll say, this item is on the agenda, or we're thinking of putting this item on the agenda. How do we word it? What do we manage? How do we manage it? Can we bring it back? Can we not bring it back? The fact that I'm standing here before you today is one of those answers, right? The contract for legal services with our office was approved during the last board meeting. And there was a question about it. And so I received a call. I said, hey, can we put it back on the agenda? And I said, absolutely. It is within the authority of the board to decide who legal counsel is, right? I know that you have legal counsel already. But the reason that that sometimes having different legal counsel is important is simply a matter of choice. It gives you different choices in terms of how you interact with different individuals, different attorneys, different perspectives. All of the attorneys in the state of New Mexico, when it comes down to school law, we all follow the same law. So it's not about calling one attorney and getting different advice from the other attorney, because we all have to follow the same law. It's about a matter of the way that the services are provided and how they are done. So I'm going to give you just a little bit of a background of the firm that I work with now. Walsh Gallegos is a firm that has been in New Mexico for more than 30 years. We also have offices in Texas. But in New Mexico, we have some attorneys that have an extreme amount of just experience in school law. All we do is school law. We don't represent any other entities. We don't do any other kind of law other than representing public schools. Elena Gallegos, who is the Gallegos in Walsh Gallegos, has been working in public school law for more than 30 years. In fact, it's 35 years. Her primary specialty is special education. And after she moved back to New Mexico, she's from Albuquerque. After she moved back to New Mexico, she also developed a large practice in board governance. She wanted to be here with me tonight, but she's actually in Taos taking care of a superintendent who is, they're naming an interim superintendent. So that's a big deal for a school board. So she had to be there in person as well. Next, we have Carla Schultz. Carla Schultz is our constitutional scholar. She used to work for the National School Board, developing policy for schools on a national level. She then went to a fancy school back east, George Washington University in DC, and now works in our office. She helps developing policy. She helps, mostly she works with administrators, superintendents, HR offices, deciding, helping them work through the difficulties that come with administering a school, because I assure you there are many that happen every day.
I think she's awesome.
She is awesome. I love she also has really cool shoes. So next time I encourage you that when you're at those conferences to check out her shoes. They're very cool. Next, we have a group of attorneys who specialize in special education. The reason that there are 3 attorneys who specialize in education is because special education has a considerable number of laws, policies, procedures, and ways that all of those things can go off track. We have Evelyn Howard-Hand, Eric Rodriguez, and Don Vernoy. And all 3 of those attorneys work in special education. They do things like work with special education directors, helping them answer the questions. They respond to due process hearings. They respond to calls from the PED. They help the special education coordinators, directors, staff, teachers put the IEPs back on track, or create the IEPs, or identify when an IEP is necessary. Dawn Vernoy was going to come with me today, and at the last minute, there was an emergency in another district that she had to attend to. Special education is one of those things that you don't mess around with. You handle it right away, because a lot can go wrong really fast. That's why we have 3 attorneys who work in that area. Stephanie Mendivi is also with our firm. She specializes in high-level contracts, details that would put most of us to sleep. She loves doing. She handles construction contracts, repair contracts, IPRA requests, inspection of public records, which sometimes drives school districts crazy. And that is her area of specialty. And then there's me. I do governance. I do board work like we're doing here tonight. My background is that before I became a school attorney, I was still a school attorney, but on the other side, I was the union attorney for the NEA for many, many years. And then I stopped doing NEA work and then worked for public schools and other entities doing immigration, particularly business immigration. Now for public schools in Walsh Gallegos, I do governance, I do employment because of my NEA background, and I do immigration and collective bargaining. So that's what I do in particular. Again, as I said, nothing about the law itself is unique to Walsh Gallegos. We all in the state of New Mexico have to follow the same law. What we have, though, is what I believe is a particularly good benefit. You'll see it in the contract. It's called a retainer program. It's $1,000 per year for the services, and that allows you, Board President Marquez and Superintendent Chavez, to call with random questions that come up in the administration of schools. And I have a list of just some examples that might have come up recently from other schools that would be covered under this retainer program that would not be charged. You have a question?
Yes, do we have the cutting, who's our attorney? Or
I don't know.
It is the Cuddy
So I
Group.
couldn't call, like what you're offering, could I call them and ask the same things, or yeah, I would ask you, I would be asking you something totally different that they couldn't answer.
President Marquez, you could probably call both firms and ask them the same thing.
Oh.
Yeah, you could call both firms. But again,
Both charge me, right?
well, it depends on, I don't know how the Cuddy firm
That
charges.
is- That's what I'm saying, like,
Yeah.
so we already have.
Yeah.
That I could call if I had questions, or any board member, that's one thing, if anybody wants to call, you know what I mean? But, right, is that what I'm understanding, that?
Well, yes and no,
Okay.
right? So first of all, not any board member can call.
Oh.
Only the board president can call. That's in your
Oh,
policy.
this one, but I'm saying with our other law.
It's the same.
It's
the
It's your
same.
policy.
Oh.
I'm reading from your own policy,
Oh,
from
okay.
your board
Really?
policy. So under your board policy, it's your board president who can call and your superintendent who
And
can
that's
call.
it.
And that's it, unless the superintendent or the board president authorizes. So for example, in another, these are NMSBA policies. So most districts have it. If the vice president, Mr. Gonzalez, wanted to call, he would call me and I would say, hey, have you cleared it with Mr. Marquez? Mr. Marcus will say yes or no, and then I could talk to him. If you say no,
Yeah.
then he has to run the question through you and then through board council. So what's different? The law is not different. It's mostly just a question of choice and a question of approach. So what I want to explain to you is the benefits of the retainer program. So yes, possibly you could be paying for the same call in both places. I don't know what your contract looks like with Cuddy. I have no idea. All I can do is explain to you the benefit of the program that we have at Walsh Gallegos. And that is a $1,000 retainer fee, and calls that fall under the retainer, they're not charged separately. You just pay the $1,000 flat fee, if you would. So some examples of the questions that I've gotten just in the last week are, can we take the doors off the bathroom stalls in the restrooms? I don't know. It was a very random call. That's just one district wanted to do that, and they wanted to know if it was legal. That would fall under the retainer. That doesn't require me to do any research. I know where it goes. I know the answer. I answer yes or no. No charge for that aside from the retainer, right? Any number of different calls. Do we have a drug testing policy? How do we create job descriptions? Can we have an MOU so that we can run, drug dogs through the schools? All of these calls that would just fall under a one-time call, those would fall under the retainer agreement. $1,000 for the full year for any call from the board president and the superintendent. Now, I will say that if the call requires extra research, if the call requires me to, or the firm, any one of the attorneys in the firm to create any documents, draft any items, review policies, revise policies, then yes, Mr. Marcus, there would be an additional cost. What you would not want to do is ask both firms to do it at the same time, because that would not be efficient. The fact that you have two counsels is not unique. In fact, most schools have multiple attorneys that assist them in various ways. I'll just list as an example, Las Lunas right now has 5 counsel for different reasons. They have board counsel, an attorney that works with the board on a regular basis to address board questions that come up. For example, the questions from today, how do we deal with the Open Meetings Act? Was the Open Meetings Act language on the agenda, was it complete? Does it comply with the Open Meetings Act? That's board counsel. Then there's a counsel that is still approved by the board, but primarily works with the administration to answer questions related to student discipline or employee matters. They also have another counsel that's specifically for their collective bargaining. They have a counsel for their bond issues, because that's a very highly specialized area. So you can see how different counsel could serve in different capacities throughout the districts. And it's not unusual for schools to have more than one counsel. In fact, it's the opposite. It's more unusual for schools to have only one counsel than it is for them to have more.
And is that based on size? Like, for example, Reserve, Roy, do they have, like, does it depend on the size of the district? Because
Sometimes.
Lunas is huge.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a huge district.
You're right. Sometimes it does depend on the size, right? If you have a very, very small school, not much is going to happen. But the truth of the matter is that schools now are more complex than ever before. Everything that we talked about in this meeting today, everything that I reviewed here just now, all of that has a law associated with it, right? We talked about the policy, and do we have a policy committee? These are your policies. All of these. Your policies require that you as a board review all of these policies every year. That's a lot of work, right? And your policies also allow you to have someone that can be hired by the superintendent as a consultant to review your policies. That's usually NMSBA service. So Hatch does use NMSBA service. They do have an attorney. They actually just hired a new attorney that would hopefully start reviewing all your policies. However, when it comes to policies, you don't have to follow NMSBA, or you can take NMSBA policy service and you can revise it so that it's specific to Hatch, right? Not all schools have a Hatch Chili Festival, and not all schools want to address the Reyes days, the Tres Reyes days that is important to Hatch. Sometimes the safety and security of a particular organization is more important, so you want to look at your policies to see how it fits. All of these things that are unique to Hatch can be changed in your policies. Sometimes a school district will call me and ask me, hey, could you look at this policy we think that in our district, it should be this, or there's something unique about our district that requires us to handle it differently, or we would like to change this. So sometimes just reviewing your policies is what's important. I think that our firm offers a different approach than a lot of the other firms. Again, we all follow the same law, but we have a variety of attorneys who specialize in different areas so that each person has mile deep knowledge in the area that they support their school districts in. And it's good to have someone who knows a little bit about everything that applies to schools. That's also good, but you also want to have someone that can go miles deep, that has significant experience in that area. That would be of greater benefit to the school districts. And that's what we do at Walsh Gallegos. We specialize in different areas. We have people who work with every single district across the state of New Mexico. At any rate, I know that you are all tired of hearing people talk to you. I am. I just want to close with one last thing. Superintendent Chavez asked me if he wanted me to move to the front of the agenda so that I could, come in and out. And I said, no, I think that's fine. I'll just wait and see what's happening in the room. And I'm so glad I did, because what I can see in this room from you on the board, new board members on the board, individuals here I've never seen this many people at a school board meeting for such a small district. What I see in Hatch, which makes me so proud, is some zealous advocacy from you guys on the board, from Superintendent Chavez, from everyone sitting here. And it makes me so proud to be from Hatch. And now I know for sure that next time I do this presentation anywhere, I will proudly once again stand up and say, I'm from Hatch, and they really know how to do education in Hatch. So thank you for your consideration. I will leave so that you guys can have a legitimate discussion without me being in the room. I thank you for considering our office, Walsh Gallegos, as part of the services that you can receive for Hatch Public Schools. And I look forward to making a difference with you guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Ms. Roxy,
Yes, sir.
make no mistake, you're all awesome.
Thank
Okay?
you.
Okay, so is there a motion to approve amending additional legal counsel?
Well, my question is this, so just to make it clear, this legal counsel is for both the board and administration?
Correct.
Similar to the other legal counsel we have.
Similar to the Cuddy Group that currently represents the school board and the administrators. Yes.
So I don't mean to interject, but so as part of the people that put these policies and procedures in place, it's important to have them. So we're the ones building it for the end users, right? And we want to make sure we get it right the first time. So yeah, it costs a lot of money, but it'll be insignificant if we get it wrong. That'll be the big payment. You know what I mean? So they're good. I've been to the SWRC and heard classes from them. They're smart individuals. They know what they're talking about. So we need them as end users. Thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you for mentioning that, Vicente. We do have a relationship with Walsh Gallegos. It's indirect, but we do have a relationship with them. Walsh Gallegos does represent the SWREC, and then we're a member district of the SWREC. And so there have been times where we go through the REC to get legal advice from Walsh Gallegos that we push through the REC. But it's very limited. It's very surface, it's just really just for direction. What this is it goes really into depth. And so some of the issues that we encounter, it's also, we find ourselves sometimes where we may have a personnel issue where a staff member is being disciplined and is requesting a board hearing. And in that type of situation, it's usually we have a counsel that would represent the board and then a separate counsel that would represent the superintendent. And so that is one of the processes. That's when we find ourselves where we have to have, it's good to have two different counsels because it's just better that way. And even we could do that through Cuddy Group and everything like that. And we have been in that situation. But even Cuddy Group has coordinated with an outside firm for representation of the superintendent. And so we do find ourselves in times like that where we do require two different legal counsels.
Is there a second? Well, I'm thinking for discussion and amending, I still want to have that discussion about why we need and I know we've talked about that. But, I'm going back to these 30 years, Mr. Chavez, that I've been in this district, and we've never needed two different councils. I just don't understand the reason and that $45,000, and I know we may not use that. Well, that's the thing that got me was the 40. I don't see anything here, $45,000 here, but we budgeted that much for this council, right? Till the remainder of the fiscal year.
We do have to budget. We always budget for legal counsel
Yeah.
and so yes.
$45,000
It-
from now until.
So that was just a number that we
Okay.
pulled. As long as it's below $60,000, we're good. So it doesn't have to be 40. If the board feels more comfortable with 20, 30, that's up to you guys. But it would have to be in this, and my recommendation would be option one, where we would have the $1,000. So we would have to cut, pay that upfront. But then the 225, if we ever ran into a situation where we had, where we needed their assistance in developing something or representation, then it would be that 225. And that's really what we're talking about in the like whatever amount that is approved up to that amount. And so Sheila could give us a better idea of what our legal expenses have been over the years.
On page with the B tab,
Which one?
under section 5, tab B, that shows you the legal service fees that we have paid to vendors other than Cuddy McCarthy over the last 4 years.
For you.
So the highest was almost 13,000 one year. So we have had expenses every year, just not 45,000. That's a cap. It's kind of arbitrary.
And that's just keeping that the same, and if we need to use it, because that's when you look at the,
Cuddy
Well,
McCarthy, I
it's-
believe, is 60.
okay,
It's set at 60,000.
but when you said that, because I do notice Walsh Gallegos in here, right? That we did use them also you said for the,
We have used them in the past.
yes,
Yes.
yeah.
But yeah, the fees that
But
are
we
on,
didn't have this type of contract in place either though, right? We just.
it
that's-
was per basis, which meant we paid more per hour.
Yes.
So
And
some
we
of
may
the,
not
And
need
that's
it
the
at all.
agreement.
That's-
That's
yeah.
the agreement that we have with Cuddy Group right now is they charge us based on the amount of time. So anytime we call them, the clock starts ticking.
So if the board felt more comfortable using Welsh Gallegos rather than Cuddy, we could go with Welsh Gallegos.
I would feel if we want to do that instead of having two different legal counsels.
well, again, we do have to. I mean, every year we have used multiple.
Yeah, but we have to go out, but they're not, we just can't pick up the phone and call them. We could, what I'm saying is, our attorneys for the board. So when, like Walsh Gallegos, you guys had to contract them separately though, right?
We've called for specific
Yes.
issues,
Yes.
but again,
Mo-
the fees are
Mostly,
more.
in the areas of special
Special,
education,
yeah.
because they do specialize in special education. It doesn't mean that we haven't used Cuddy Group for special education as well. They've represented us very well in the past as well.
Now, when their services are used, what's the legal requirement? Let's say that the district uses their services. Does the district have to report that to the board that the services were used? How does that work?
Well, they'll bill us.
They'll-
So are you talking if a board member calls them?
Well, yeah, like if let's say a board member calls the attorney. What is the process? Do we have to report that?
Well, so it goes through to the president. The president would probably notify us just to let us know what's going on. But as far as billing and everything, we would get a bill from them that would say, something along the lines that it would be
And
the
a
bills, yes.
brief description of the conversation.
The conversation?
I just don't feel comfortable buying two different things when we already have one thing, and I just don't see that yet, and maybe I just need more discussion about it. I just don't see the need for it.
things are different,
No,
and legally,
Yeah.
in the years that I've been here, we've always have dealt with, at least one, serious issue, if you will, that has required extensive representation. And it's just different situations that arise, we've been lucky this year that we haven't, I'm going to knock on wood, that we don't this year, but, as much as we try to make sure that everything is set and done, and, we still need to reach out to our attorneys and make sure that we're following, I think I said this, previously, but, my first year here, there was a situation with the staff member and the documentation. The wrong word was used. And so you wouldn't think that one word made that big difference, but it made all the difference where we had to go back, we had to bring in the attorneys and clear up some things. And so it's better to just get it right. It's better to have people, available to us. So I know with Walsh Gallegos, it's something that just would give us an additional perspective on that.
Going back to that one word, so you couldn't call our attorneys to ask them that
We did.
question?
That's what we did.
And they
yeah.
gave us the wrong.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't. No, it was an error that was done on our end.
Okay.
Yeah. And so they worked hard to clarify it and get it cleared up. But there's different reasons why we seek a different counsel. So for example, we talked about the bonds and the selling of bonds, so Cuddy McCarthy is involved in that as well, when we go to election and we do the notifications, but also RCB as they have their own attorneys and so there's just different reasons why we use different attorneys for different things.
Motion to amend or approve or rescind?
Motion to approve.
Make a motion to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
We'll go ahead and take that to a vote.
Uh,
If in favor, say yes. If opposed, no.
I don't understand what, is it the funding part?
Yeah, the 45, I'm not sure, like,
But that's if you use
Yeah.
it.
so can we
That's
amend that?
if you
and-
use it.
Of course you can.
Yeah,
You want to knock it down to 15, 20?
You know, that's why Sheila is there. We have funding? We've already budgeted for that. So if there's funding, I can understand for them to say, Sheila's always the one to say, we don't have money. You can't do it.
Since
She would have never
So-
put it on the table.
Since it was approved, we already created the PO. I have
Mhm.
not sent it to her. Mike has not signed the contract. We're waiting because we got the
I-
call that you
yeah.
wanted to.
to
Communicate.
Send it, yeah.
So, yes, we could revise the PO to decrease it to 30, but I mean, the board did approve 45. That's up to, that just gives us a buffer if something
And
comes up.
hopefully we don't even touch it. Hopefully we
Yeah.
don't use it,
So,
but you gotta have a backup plan.
So this is basically to have two attorneys for the district that the board can call on or the superintendent can call on when needed.
Correct.
Depending on the situation, I would think, Mike.
Yeah, we look, and that's why I'm saying we use different attorneys for different items. Depending on what the issue it is or what kind of clarification we need. We reach out to different ones.
I also see special ed director now. This is a lot of money. I'm assuming that the special director knows sped law. But with that 45,000, if she decides, I don't know who gives her, the contract says that she doesn't need to ask our permission, Mr. Chavez. It says she can call. So if she gets on that phone and every single time she has a question.
No,
It-
it
it-
still has to go through the superintendent and you heard Roxy
and
say
through-
that.
And through me also, because it
And
says
it goes
superintendent,
either-
board president, special director may call. It doesn't say they need approval. That's what I'm reading right here. It says superintendent, board president, and special notification director.
It's at no charge.
That's no charge.
At no
That's
charge.
no charge.
Because the
Because
retainer
the
has been paid.
$1,000.
So they can
Yeah.
call at no charge.
If they don't have to go and do some labor.
If they don't have
If
to,
it's just a question that she can answer right off the bat, yeah. But if it's something that goes to a hearing or something, they're gonna charge us. That's all I'm. I mean, if it's
But if there
more labor-
needs to be a hearing, why wouldn't you want a lawyer?
But don't we have a lawyer already?
we have a lawyer, so if it goes to hearing, there always needs to be two different counsels. Okay, there needs to be one that represents the school board and one that represents the superintendent.
Everybody has valid issues, Richard, you do, but all we can do is vote on it.
Yeah, that's all.
That's about it.
Okay, yeah, so let's go ahead and there's a motion to continue or to approve, right, without rescinding it.
It was seconded already.
Wait a second.
It was already seconded.
Oh, that's right. Those in favor? Once again, yes, and those opposed, no. Mr. Legarreta,
I'll go with a yes.
I'll go with yes.
Montes,
Yes,
right?
Yes.
And no. But motion carries. It's approved. Okay, new business. Item 6A, consider approval of application of site use agreement for Schumacher Veterinary Clinic.
So we've got a long history with Schumacher Veterinary Clinic. And what they do is they come in and provide vaccinations for the community. They use our facilities to be able to do so. I think they usually set up here at the high school and open it up for the community to access. In this here case, it's rabies, but they also offer other types of vaccinations. And so it's just approval for them to use our facilities.
and they also take care of my two babies.
Well, yeah, and I had mentioned that, that's why I found it kind of strange for the agenda, because somebody gave them permission already, right?
Yeah,
Correct?
so it's
So if we were to vote no today, they would be pretty upset, right?
well, it's on the
I'm not gonna vote
27th.
No, but I'm just
It's on
saying.
January 27th.
Yeah,
We're,
but that.
Richard, we're building community
No, I
relations
know,
either
but
way.
why is it on the agenda? I'm not sure why it's on
So-
there.
Yeah.
Yes. No, and I'm glad it's approved, but I'm just.
Good,
I-
yeah, so we did get the request
Mhm.
and it was like the day before the last
Mhm.
board meeting. So it wasn't enough time to put it on the last board agenda. So it's on now. That's why
Okay.
it's now.
Awesome.
They did email us to see if it was a go. We said, we don't know yet, but I mean, that's what it is. It's a standing thing. They come every
Yes.
year and they
It's,
do that.
it's every year.
Yeah.
And so it's, we didn't get away from that.
Okay.
But it's the same thing like, for example, we had the light parade, and the next board meeting, the event will have already passed.
Okay.
So it's been the, what we've done with the board and what the board has requested in the past is that I contact a board member or two and see what they feel. And if we get approval to move forward, then we'll tell them, go ahead and move forward. But then it's still got to come to the board at the next board meeting for the official approval of the board. So yes, it has
Okay.
passed,
It has-
but that's been the
So
process in the
flexibility.
past.
Okay.
Yeah. But again, it's one of those things where, as Mr. Montes said, we want to maintain a good working relationship with the community and open up our facilities for them to be able, if it benefits the community, then usually what it's been, the board has always been supportive of that.
And you guys are gonna find out quick that those applications always are coming in late.
No,
Always.
and that was my question.
Yeah.
Reading those other applications prior, and I was looking at board policy. For example, the middle school, I didn't see the administrator sign off on that agreement. I would assume that before we can even approve that the building administrator needs to approve that first, and these let us know, because I wouldn't want to supersede, for example, if the building administrator is not cool with it, and all of a sudden the board approves it and she has to do it, that's not fair to her either.
Or which one?
for
The next one.
the next one. Yeah,
Thank you. Yeah, she did call, but it was just a couple days ago, so I haven't been able to get the signature on there yet. Well, I haven't gotten the form yet,
Sometimes,
but
sometimes that we just don't have the
Yeah.
time for it to circle
Exactly.
around to everybody that needs to.
but you did it, but is there a place where you can sign that that it's those dates and that time won't interact with or conflict with any other things? Yeah. Okay, yeah.
So,
but that worked.
so typically the approval process, it has three different signatures. One's the principal, the other's the athletic director, and the third is the superintendent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that does need to go through the board though still?
No, you just give the approval for that. So
Okay.
we've got to go through the approval process and say, but again, it's one of those things that it's reoccurring.
Yeah, it's good.
It
Yeah.
happens, and so, so for you guys, it would just be the approval to be able to say, yes,
Oh,
they
okay.
have approval
I
to
just
be able
thought
to
that
use the
you had
site.
That sole discretion and it really didn't involve us. I mean, if it's.
Well, because it has to be in the record, it has to be
Oh,
official.
okay.
Mike, did we not give you and the administrators the authority to
Yes,
approve?
yeah,
then
and
the
so,
board-
Yeah.
so what it was is that I needed to contact a
Yeah.
board member and see if they were in agreement.
So in the future, we could do that. I mean, I just to take up, have
Yeah.
less stuff on it, but if that would be awful, Mr. Chavez.
Yeah, I'm not sure when, this is for the 22nd.
Yeah. Cause I just feel like
And-
that's a building and those are school buildings that you and the building administrator should have. I mean, unless it's in somewhere in law that we do have to approve that. But looking at the board policy, I didn't see where the board had to approve facility usage. For some reason, I may
Yeah.
have missed that.
I don't know, it's been a practice that's been here,
Really?
yes, and so I did check with the lawyers at one time
Okay.
about that, who has the authority, and that's what I was told is that, yes, the superintendent can give the authority, but it's still got to have a board approval, final approval for that. So it goes into the official record that the board was okay.
Okay.
And part of that just has to do with making sure that the board is good with any type of liability. That there is no liability, that for example, like the parade, they have their own insurance and that sort of thing. When we do the chili festival, same thing,
And they
so it's
sign a
just
whole harmless agreement still and all that building
Yeah.
principles.
Yeah.
and all that.
correct.
All right. Okay, so item 6,
I move to approve.
okay, seconded by Gray. Mr. Legarreta,
Yes.
Mr. Gonzalez.
Yes.
Montes,
Yes,
Ms. Garay.
Yes.
Yes, motion carries.
Is that for both or?
For
just
both,
one?
we're just do for both, yeah.
los dos?
Los dos, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, item number 7, items for future meetings. And just real quick, looking across, sitting there, Mrs. Russell, we did not put attendance procedures or policies. I'm sorry about that. I know we had talked about it last time and I don't know why it wasn't there, but we do really need to talk about. I know Mrs. Russell had some concerns from last board
Right,
meeting.
and so we're, as part of our safety process and
Okay.
that sort of thing, Mr. Zamora is going to be working on that. And I don't know if you had a chance to talk with Ms. Russell, but so one of the things that we're wanting to do is we're wanting to look at this also from the perspective of being able to bring this to the board with the first hearing being in April. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Zamora. But in April and then have the final approval in May. But this would give us time to be able to visit with principals and see what it is, like some of the concerns that are there that we have, and then open it up for a committee to be able to give input so that we can look at this process and see, what needs to happen. And so again, I just need to make the distinction between policy and procedure. And so this is being handled from that perspective of a procedure.
And is there a timeline that we could put on there? Or is that?
Well, that's our goal. That's our goal is to have it to the board for the first reading.
For,
First reading in April and final approval in May.
April.
Because this would have to be into next year,
Yeah.
into the student handbook for next year. It'd be kind of hard to be retroactive
Yeah,
and get it done.
okay. But for April, we're gonna have
Yes,
some
Yes. That's our goal.
Oh, yeah, go, but.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to just kind of say thank you to Mr. Chavez and Sheila, and Tony and Vicente. I know we have a lot of concerns. Thank you for listening and answering our questions, and I do appreciate it. The questions and the concerns come due to experience and from what we have heard in the community. So we want to make sure we address what those concerns are in a timely fashion and make sure that we give voice to the people that voted for us. So I would like to keep I'd like for you guys to look at some options for us with regards to the time clock situation. We need options. We need to look at improving this system so that so many of our staff don't feel disenfranchised. So I'd like to put that on the agenda.
Anybody else for any agenda items, for future meetings? I would like, Mr. Chavez, I don't know if that would be executive session, but to discuss staff and faculty morale in an executive session, or I'm not sure how we go about discussing those issues that the community and teachers and
So-
staff are, but not in the
Sure.
open forum, but we just need to sit down and there's a
So-
lot of things that.
One of the
That's
things that we've
another-
got to make sure that we follow is the Open Meetings Act. Okay,
Yes,
so
yes.
even with executive session, we had to
Yes.
follow certain
Yes.
certain items. We're only limited to certain items
Okay,
because it does need to be in an open forum.
okay,
An open discussion. And so, it's one of those things where, let me just tell you how we've operated in the past. Okay. Usually, when there's concerns or that sort of thing, a board member will call me
mhm,
and say, hey, look, we've got this, or I've heard this issue, or I heard, can you look into it? Can you? And so then that's the role of what I do then is to go look at, do we have an issue? How severe is the issue? I mean, it's all those pieces
Yeah.
and go over and talking to people. One of the things is I'd hope that, by now we'd have a culture of being able to report directly to the superintendent, because that's really where it belongs. Well, and even before the superintendent,
Chain of
following the
command.
chain of command. And so visiting with their principal first, and then if the principals, and then coming over to, and then the school board, because one of the things that people need to understand is that that's really where the problems, like some of these things that you guys are talking about, is resolved through the superintendent and through the principals and the employee and that sort of thing. And so, but I also know that this is a small community, and a lot of times people just have, they want to talk to a school board member. I'm not threatened by that, and I don't oppose that at all. But usually when that does happen and it goes to a school board member, that's usually a call that I get.
Yeah.
And because what we want to do is we want to resolve issues, right? I think we all want the same thing.
yes.
Right? We want our staff to feel good. We want our kids to feel good. We're not here, like I said, I made the statement earlier. We're not here to take advantage of anybody. We're here to make things right, and if we don't have an alignment to our procedures or our policy, then we need to know about that and we need to fix it. Right. And so,
Mr.
one
Chavez,
of the things that I hear a lot of times though, is I hear people say, well, I don't want to speak up because of retaliation. Well, at some point, here's the thing. This is what I tell people all the time is if we don't speak honestly and we don't bring issues up, then I can guarantee one thing is that it'll never change, because we've got to address those things. We got to put them on the table. We need to be able to resolve the issues, and we need to be able to do it in a way that people don't feel threatened by it. And so, that's what we've tried to instill. That's the kind of culture we've tried to instill
But
in our
maybe-
district.
But a lot of, there's certain employees that don't feel that culture has
I
been established. But when
understand.
do we have that like, is it during executive session, or do I just sit down one-on-one with?
Usually
would-
that's usually what it is. It's usually, if it's an issue like that, like I said, I get a call from one of our school board members. I've had different conversations with each of our school board members,
Okay.
and they bring concerns. Like I said, a lot of times people reach out to them, and that's cool.
But our responsibility is to make sure and tell them, you need to follow chain of command. I can't help you. I can't address that issue.
Exactly,
Go through
exactly. And that's
Yeah.
why but sometimes, like I said, that's why I'm saying that sometimes employees need that avenue
Yes.
to be able to reach out to you, Mr. Marcus, and say, hey, look, I've got an issue with this,
Yes.
and take that issue. And I never ask for names. I never ask for names from our board members. Now, if it's a situation where I need to know that name, then absolutely, I'll say, hey, look, this is kind of serious. I need the name in order to conduct an investigation. And so, but most of the time, it's very simple. It's
So
a
where do
very
we have
simple
those
fix.
conversations, for example, if an employee feels that they already spoke to you, but their concerns aren't being addressed, or they were just, so where do we have those? discussions?
That can then take, so then,
Okay.
it could go into executive session under personnel,
Okay.
where we talk about personnel. And,
I really feel that all five of us need to be hearing the same thing.
Right.
Kind of bounce things and say, this is what I'm hearing, or this is what I was told. So we kind of get an idea, but if it's just me going to you, the other board members may not hear that
Right.
and not know that's concerned.
right.
I just want to,
Just from being on the board
Uh-huh.
before, you have to be very careful
yes,
about not being in a forum. You cannot call Mr.
No.
You
oh,
cannot call like Mr. Legareta
Oh,
and
yeah.
then
No,
Mr.
there's- yeah.
Gonzalez. You gotta be very careful with
yeah,
that.
no, I understand that.
So you do need to get a hold of the superintendent and tell him, hey, this is what's going on and this is what they feel. It might be, hey, let's bring this employee in or whoever it is. But
That's why I was saying executive
unless,
session or
absolutely,
something. Yeah. not-
absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely.
So
Yes.
so
you
there
gotta
have
watch
been
your back.
situations where things have
Yeah.
been brought to my attention and maybe I have to conduct an investigation, right?
Okay. Thank you.
The result of that investigation then would probably go into executive session because those are personnel issues that we can't discuss in a public forum. Right? And so it would go into executive session. I usually brief the board on what happened, what the results of the investigation and what action was taken.
And
And-
even a phone call to another board member is considered a rolling quorum. So you have to be very careful. You
Yeah, they
cannot
don't
call them.
somebody yet.
Yes.
But like you used the word retaliation, I'm glad, but like those things we need to start addressing and they may just be a perception out there.
Yeah,
But by
it
you
is.
saying that, so you may have heard some of that stuff already. But it's something that I feel that we need to address in our district and it just, the morale doesn't
I talk to people all the time. Look, okay, and here's the thing is that I'm always checking the pulse of the district. I hear from teachers, I hear from administrators, I hear from community members, I hear from board members. I'm always taking the pulse of the district, and one of the things that's been perplexing to me is just recently, it seems like the morale issues that have popped up recently have, I've been wondering, why? I mean, I listen to superintendents from around the state and they talk about the issues that they face and some of the things that they're dealing with. We don't have those kind of issues here in Hatch. We try to take care of business. We try to keep it simple. We try to keep it to where we resolve things and we get on down the road. We're all adults, and what we can't lose sight of
Yes.
is that
Kids
we're
come
here for the
first.
kids.
Kids come
And
first.
if we don't have
Understand
kids, we
that.
don't have jobs.
But by the same
And,
token,
and
our employees, they're your clients. You
exactly.
need to feel
And so
supported. They need to feel like.
And so if
they're-
they don't feel supported, then
Or-
I need to know that.
Yeah, and not told, oh, well, there's the door. No, we want to help you. We want you here. We want you in our district and we will fix this and we'll address your concerns.
Absolutely. I
mean,
think,
that's
we all
what
want
we're-
the same thing.
Because then that will help our students, because happy teachers are good teachers and good teachers, students learn. They're
Absolutely.
here. Yeah.
Absolutely. I don't know if we have, I don't know. And if you think that there's a morale issue in our district, maybe we need to do a climate survey of our staff. I don't know.
Mr. Chavez, I filled out those two and I'm not, especially when it says Garfield, I'm not gonna be
Well,
honest with that. I'm
so-
telling you the truth as a teacher. I
Yeah.
was not honest.
Yeah.
You can't put on there because especially if there's only 5 teachers at Garfield and they get that.
Yeah.
No way. That's not the way. Surveys don't work.
Well,
It's like-
but it doesn't have to be by school side. It could be
Well, it
district
was,
wide.
but last year it was actually like you put your your school name, and there's only
Yeah.
5 teachers there, so, I mean, it's not anonymous.
Right.
It can also be anonymous, can it?
It can be,
It could
yeah,
be.
yeah.
It could be.
Yeah.
But other than that, yeah, I mean, just letting teachers know that you guys have their backs and that, yeah, I mean, if their concerns will be addressed, and so I don't know where to discuss that in what type of forum, right? That's what I'm asking you.
If
Well-
an issue like that comes up, you best believe we will discuss it in
Okay.
executive session.
Yeah,
If it needs to
and just
be
have
discussed.
open conversations and
Yeah.
be honest with each other.
Right.
Yes.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay,
What other items?
all right. What other?
Yeah,
items?
that, you still wanna look into the field house?
Yes,
Field house?
and then the grounds and maintenance as well.
What about?
Just the whole landscaping of a lot of the schools and the upkeep.
Okay, would you like, all of our schools have just gone through, what they call an FMAR score, where all of our buildings are rated by the state. Would you like to see those reports?
Sure.
That'll give a good idea of where our facilities stand.
Yes, sir.
Well, actually, I brought it to your attention a couple of months ago when the voting was going on. It's an eyesore. Walking into that area at the other side, it looks abandoned. And I brought it to your attention before, but
Or in the voting area?
for the outside.
Out of the
area,
grounds
Oh,
and
yeah,
I mean, I believe you were thinking or discussing about putting
rock.
decorative rock,
Right,
whatever,
decorative rock, right.
but it's high school.
Yeah.
But it's, I brought it up too, so.
Okay.
We'll visit it again.
Chop the trees yourself?
No, cut down on the mustard weed and
Just,
make it look nice. We can't have grass, so.
no.
Okay, any other items for future?
I'd like to
Mhm.
kind of start to hear a little bit from our administrators, maybe put them like on a rotational basis where they give us a report, not all of them on the same night, because then we'll be here till 10 o'clock. But maybe elementary then next.
Like
time.
just an update?
Yeah, I like an update.
Uh,
What are they doing
okay,
to address some of the things that we've talked about
Okay,
every month?
So kind of like
But I want to focus more on the construction kind of piece, not
Yeah,
one at a time.
Instruction,
what
discipline.
house,
Nothing-
house
nothing-
activities. I don't know. Something more with dealing with instruction, what kind of instructional strategies they're seeing and kind of,
Beginning,
yeah.
right, to
Mhm.
give,
What
to get what their goals were.
what standards they're focusing on for this 9 weeks, something like that, that's, I mean, and it is, I mean, it kind of keeps you on your toes when you do have to do that in front of the board. I remember
Sure.
coming and saying, what are you working on for this 9 weeks? What are your goals?
right.
I mean, what assessments, have your formative assessments created? What standards are you working on? And I mean, so it kind of keeps you on your toes also as an administrator.
Okay,
What do you want first?
I'll leave that. Oh,
Leave that.
Rock, paper, scissors.
I'm an elementary principal. I mean, I would love to hear what's going on at the elementary schools, to be
Okay.
honest with you.
Start with the outermost,
Oh, the outermost.
Garfield.
Garfield. How about that?
yeah,
So
Garfield's
we'll have
fine.
him as our guest
Okay,
next meeting.
Mr. Mason, one.
oh, Mr. Messa's online, okay. All right, did you hear that, Mr. Mesa?
I'm in. Let's do it.
Well,
Okay. Anything else for future meetings?
We are having it.
Yes, so that's the next item for the next regular board meeting. But I don't want to jump unless if there's more things for future meetings, we need to finish that up.
No,
first.
and I don't know how you all feel about a board meeting before the 14th, just so we can have those discussions that we talked about, like the,
You want to have a special board meeting?
Special board
yeah,
meeting?
you know, we haven't done a whole lot of team building, Mr. Chavez. I mean, I haven't sat down just as the board to talk and our concerns, your concerns, and
Okay,
something like that, so we can just talk without an agenda and just, I don't know what that would be called,
Well, we could do a special board meeting,
Special board
and we
meeting.
can fold in, the,
It
it has to be an open meeting.
has to be an open meeting.
So, but what we could do is in the special meeting, we've already talked about the need for a work session with RBC.
Mhm.
So then we can fold in any type of work session that we, and I can visit with you to talk about exactly what it is that
Okay.
you're wanting. Whether you're wanting just an open forum like this, or if you're wanting specific something that would need to go into executive session. So you and I can visit on that.
Okay. All right. All right, item agenda 9. Fine. Oh, we're.
I do
still-
have, no,
Oh.
I do have for next board meeting. I do have a request to move the regular scheduled board meeting for February from February 14th to a week later, which would be what? The 21st. Yes. If the board is agreeable to that, we'd like to make that change with the announcement also that it would be at the new building.
That'll work for me.
I'm off that day.
So am I.
Yep, where's Richard?
I didn't mind the 14th. That means I didn't have to spend money on that day.
Hey, but not 9.
Is that agreeable to the board?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So we just need to announce then that the next board meeting would be the 21st.
Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Yes.
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 Chris, I mean,
Chris.
Montes. Oh,
Yes.
sorry. Good, yes. Okay, motion carries. Meeting adjourned.